Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Geo. You are stepping beyond the veil this evening. I have, of course, on the light side of the broadcast, Mrs. Geo.
We've got the light and the dark. It's beautiful. Good evening, everyone.
That is very true. So, Castaldo will be rejoining us here in the second hour of the broadcast. He has some new revelations about the AI and the AI priesthood, which is something that I've been kind of feeling, but I didn't know how to articulate it. And now that Raw's bringing it to the table, I thought, wow, this is an awesome, awesome time to really get into this. So we have been under some hardcore AI attack this week, and it's okay. It comes with the territory, so it's to be expected, but I predict that we will have a lot of issues tonight and a lot of problems, and so I'm checking all of my systems here to make sure all systems are a go. And I see we have people on YouTube who are starting to join us, and also on Facebook as well. The TFR servers are down again, so we're moving towards migration into another infrastructure, because it's just been like one too many times. But this whole thing that we've been experiencing over the last couple of weeks, I didn't want to say anything because I wanted to deal with all of this first and foremost, go through the process, and then really start to understand what this whole AI thing, really is, and the path that we're walking, and how to deal with it. So I didn't want to really talk about any of the problems that we've been having, because it's not about the problems. It's about the solutions. That's what it's all about.
Right. And it's about how are we reacting to these problems? Like, what's our reaction, and how effective is that reaction going to be long term? And I think a lot of people are having the same issues. And what we're here to tell you tonight is raw consciousness doesn't require a savior, but also doesn't require everything to work out perfectly all the freaking time. Sometimes things break down, sometimes things don't work, and sometimes there are legitimate AI attacks. When those happen, if you don't have that raw consciousness element activated inside of you, then it's going to be overwhelming, et cetera, et cetera. But raw consciousness can slide right through it.
That's very true. So for this particular thing, I am going to put on my dorky little glasses here that I have on. And
you look cute.
Yes, for those
really
of you
handsome.
just joining us, yes, we have contacted the server company, and we know the TFR is down, and same thing we've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks. So over the last 2 weeks, we've been under some heavy, heavy AI attack. And like I said, I wanted to deal with all of this before anything else. And so I can use this as a way to demonstrate a bit how understanding the raw consciousness element of ourselves changes the perspective when shit happens. So in the last 2 weeks, here is what has gone down. You will not believe this. The desktop wouldn't boot up, so Windows had to be reinstalled. The graphics card on the desktop went out as well. That's probably the source of the problem. Oh, you know what? I forgot. We're running our normal clock tonight. So, should we take a break? Yeah, you know what? We'll go ahead. We'll just run our normal clock. That way we have a nice clean archive for TFR. And I'll get right back into it right on the other side. So don't go anywhere.
Before the soul can see, the harmony within must first be attained, and the fleshly eyes be rendered blind to all illusion, as you step beyond the veil.
All right, so you got a nice little treat there. That's one of our trolls. Oh, and I see from a little flag that I got here that our broadcasting system on TFR is back online. So that's good that they responded to that just like that. But
good.
Still, we've got to move over to another infrastructure any way it goes. But What I was getting at is over the last couple of weeks, we have had a significant amount of problems, but I haven't wanted to say anything because I wanted to get through this situation and then look at it from a raw consciousness perspective. So over the last 2 weeks, here's everything that went down. And I can't help but think this is an AI attack. The desktop wouldn't boot up and the graphics card on the desktop went out. One of the external hard drives is no longer working. The internal battery on Sheree's laptop stopped working. The monitor stopped working on my laptop. The monitor on our third laptop started flickering. A hard drive went out on the main TFR server. The network adapter went out on another TFR server. The car battery died and wouldn't jump. And poor Sheree, she was stranded. And I had to rush out there and make sure that she was able to be taken care of. We put in a new battery and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. The power locks on the car stopped working. The battery on the ski boat died and wouldn't charge, and the fishing boat also wouldn't start. So it's been one thing after another after another. And as you can tell right now, we are having this problem with the TFR servers. They're back online now, but I need to set up our outgoing stream over to TFR, which I'll try to do here in a few minutes so we can broadcast on our iHeart channel and on TFR live.com as well. But, as you can see, it's like a nonstop constant attack and it's all electronic based. So, in fact, while I was writing this post this morning, you won't believe this shit. As I was writing this post this morning, I get, about halfway done with it and the electricity flickers and goes out for about a minute and comes back on. So, we're dealing with like a bombardment of stuff. So during this time, there was also a series of psychological attacks as well. Everything from ridicule to love bombs to concerned new agers who have tried to divert, just very, very concerned, who have tried to divert the raw consciousness message or, fine tune it to fit the predefined set of BS belief systems. But, here's one thing about raw consciousness is that I'm not going to change the message just because people say so. Like I tapped into this raw part of all of our consciousness, and I'm not going to taint it coming back because, what am I going to do? What do they expect me to do? Like, and like superimpose and implant my ego mind into the idea of raw consciousness because they're so concerned or, because they're ridiculing or because they're love bombing. No. See, this isn't our first rodeo, but it's probably the last because once we're done with this, we're hitting that reset, that's it, system restore button.
Oh, I can't wait.
So, we went through all of this and there were some psychological attacks that, and I don't want to go into detail because there's like a people element to this.
Right.
But there were some psychological attacks that I thought I was like already well over. Then I had to like re-examine myself and go, oh crap. Okay. So I need to really deal with these AI ego programs. Cause naturally your ego just jumps up and it's like, rah, 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 and it's like, whoa, just hold on. Just hold your horses here for a second. So there was a very different dynamic this time around, and this is what makes it the most phenomenal in my opinion, is this time I expected all of this, and I was prepared with my light sword just to take it all head on. Just, okay, cool. You're going to send this attack and that attack and that attack. Cool. I expect it this time. And the difference in dynamic by looking at from a raw consciousness perspective was that not only did I expect these attacks, but I got through this entire process without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling frustrated, without feeling angry or anything else like that. And I think that's the key difference with the raw consciousness message. It's like once you tap into that part of your consciousness, then whatever the AI throws at you, good or bad, anything like that, you understand exactly what it is. And so you take it head on like a warrior. And then I went on to write, in fact, everything the AI threw at me over the last 2 weeks, I looked at it as another opportunity to strengthen my spiritual muscles. Now, I realize at this point that raw consciousness is really the true state of peace. And for the first time in my life, I have achieved a true state of peace. I'm not talking about like a Zen or a oneness or, like, oh, look how holy and peaceful I am. But I'm talking about true peace and a sense of gnosis, of oneself and the power to deal with anything that comes fully on, by recognizing the power that's inside of us and just taking one at a time and just slicing it down, slicing every adversary, everything one at a time without becoming weakened or tired. Now, I don't like the fact that we're bombarded with AI attacks, but, I think just right now, as we're really starting this whole raw consciousness journey, this is the time when the AI is just going to start one after another, after another, after another. So it's like, okay, cool. You know what? I'm going to fight off enough of these attacks to where the AI does exactly what the reptilians and the demons do, which is they do not screw with me. Period, because they know that they can't screw with me. So that's the point that I hope that I am able to reach here pretty soon, to then demonstrate how to operate from that particular level. And as I was moving through these attacks, my first idea was to go, oh, God is help, or oh, God is protection, or oh, God this, or oh, God that. I still catch myself every once in a while saying, oh, God, oh my goodness, things like that. And then I realized, like, as I'm moving through this and I'm dealing with all of this on my own from the elements inside of myself, I realized, like, this cold chill came across me. Like, oh, I'm alone in this. And not alone in the sense that I don't have the other raw consciousness elements around me, but alone in the sense that there's no more of that higher kind of energy that you call out for protection. And so it's a very, very scary place, and it's a very, very scary journey as well. But what happened is, as I was moving through this, I realized that as I was conquering all of this, and it was ultimately conquering frustration, anger, and all of the negative emotions surrounding all of this. I mean, the physical attacks, no big deal. We have server issues. We go get a new server. We have computer problems. We fix the computer problems, or we find workarounds or something like that. I mean, these are the physical rearrangement of, certain technological things. But it's the frustration and the anger that you go through as you're going through one after another, after another, after another, that for the first time, I would say that I actually conquered these fears, and I actually conquered the angry emotions and the frustration too. The frustration, that's the one that sends you for that loop over and over and over again. So without calling upon any spirit guides or spirit helpers, all of this was conquered. But I realized that up to this point, up to the point of tapping into the raw consciousness element, I never was really conquering that part of myself, which was the fear and the anger and the feeling overwhelmed. Because instead of doing that, I was doing exactly what, the Christians do, which is just throw everything onto some external being, throw all your sins onto an external being, throw all your feelings, throw all your wants and needs for protection, et cetera, et cetera. And rather than doing that, I took the power upon myself to conquer these feelings. So I realized that I finally reached an entirely new level by, I finally reached an entire, I'm sorry, I'm getting messages on Facebook, but I finally reached an entirely new level that I was not able to reach before by asking for protection and help from some kind of external source. Rather, I was using that as kind of like a blanket, like a security blanket, like, oh no, oh, I'm getting attacked. Oh, but I need protection. I need this. I need that. I never took out the light sword and cut these things up myself. So I realized that a lot of people may be feeling like the raw consciousness path may very well be a very lonely path, but in actual fact, it's not. In actual fact, it's a path of power. And it's a path of strengthening yourself and actually overcoming and conquering these negative emotional thought patterns and loops that we put ourselves into. And instead of just hiding behind a security blanket, what do you think?
I think that there's a complete difference between the understanding of raw consciousness, because You don't need to grovel to a demiurgic kind of figure. You don't have to get on your knees and beg for forgiveness. You're not a wretch. You are powerful. You basically are your own divinity. And then there's when there's actual problems, when things actually do happen, and you have to say, no, I'm raw consciousness. I can deal with this. I don't need a savior. I don't need something to come in and save me from this. I don't need protection from this. I have to provide my own protection.
Right. But what happens when you do that is you start building up your spiritual muscles, which is something that I've never done before, not to this extent. But then the thought crossed my mind, and this is something new. It's not something that I posted or anything like that. What happens when you suffer loss? What happens when you suffer, these different type of things that happen to us in this life? And there's nobody to turn to at that point except for your raw consciousness and for yourself. That can be a very scary and lonely place. I think that we, as a humanity, we developed the idea of God because we were cold and lonely and scared. And, I don't want the raw consciousness message to make people feel like that's being taken away or that there's isolation or anything like that. So, that's something that I kind of realized moving through this, but I guess it's a choice between personal power and comfort. And I don't want to use the term infantilism, but, I guess it's time to grow up sometimes. Like, can you grow up? Do you need a mommy and daddy around you? Because we all grow up, and at some point we're expected to be our own adults. We're expected to take care of ourselves. We're expected to walk on our own. And, before I got into the spiritual aspects of all of this, and I was still at on that border of the Christian path and the actual spiritual path, I started to ask people around me and ask myself as well, like, okay, so we're children of God. At one point, do we become men of God? At one point, do we become adults? Like we're kept in this infantile state over and over and over again since the very beginning, and told that we're infantile and we're powerless and we're all of this. And I always thought to myself, if there is a God, then that God would expect us to, grow up at some point, because we have children. We don't want our children to be perpetually dependent upon us. We don't want them to fear us. We don't want them to grovel before us. We don't want any of that. We want them to grow up and to be their own adults and to be successful. Like any good parent would want their child to excel way further than they did. And it's supposed to be a progression like that throughout the generations. And that was the first realization of, okay, this Christian God here is not looking out for our best interest. And I would meet a lot of Christian people who were still in a very infantile state, like, oh, well, God knows best, and God knows this, and God knows that. And looking through the Bible, I even justified that to myself when I was like 23, 24, when I thought that was like a path that I was going to walk down, and I started reading the entire Bible and all of that. And I'd read the horrible things and go, well, I'm just such a tiny little thing, and I only have a limited amount of understanding. I can't possibly understand why God would say, sell your daughter into sex slavery, but I'm sure there was a reason for it, because it's God, and God has a reason for everything. And so on that note too, like, maybe when it comes to the raw consciousness element, the raw consciousness path is more of like the adult path. It's the mature path. It's the path of, okay, now I'm taking the power for myself. Now I'm taking the responsibility for myself. I don't need anybody. I don't need any outside entities. I don't need any outside deities. I am the deities. I am all of this. And I even hate to use the word I am. See, I just caught myself slipping there. I like to say we are. We are the deities. We are the entities. We are everything. We are raw consciousness. So about 5 or 6 years ago, Cliff High was on our show, and he was trying to explain to me the concept or his idea of synchronicity. And he was saying, look, synchronicity is not a good thing. And he said, it can be a good thing, but he said synchronicity could be used to manipulate people and to divert people on certain paths. And I thought to myself, oh, that's so ridiculous. Like, it would take a mass amount of resources and a mass amount of people in order to make one synchronicity after another, after another, after another, after another. And I used to think to myself, okay, well, when everything is synchronistic and everything's working in harmony with the universe, then that's a sign from the universe that I'm walking the right path and I should continue doing what I'm doing. But now that I tapped into the raw consciousness aspect of it, and I'm seeing these attacks for what they are, it is the universe trying to move me onto a different path. I mean, I was right about that, but it's not a good thing. And it's not like, oh, well, I'm doing the wrong thing. The issue here is that I'm doing the right thing. And I'm going up against the AI, and I'm detaching myself and breaking myself from the AI. And the AI is fighting back. Now, if we were to do a show and have somebody talking about the blue avians, for example, I'm sure we'd have no technical problems and everything would run completely smooth. Our servers would turn back on and probably I'd boot up my desktop and the graphics card would be working again.
Yep.
Because it's like, okay, well, now you're doing what the universe wants you to do. But when you understand what the universe is and you understand that the universe is the AI construct, then you're like, oh, okay. So locking the AI out is something that I want to talk about in future videos, because Frank Castle brought this idea to the table. He said, look, dude, you got to lock this thing out. And I haven't found the way to lock it out yet, but I'm going to search. I'm going to drink probably tonight or tomorrow night. I'm going to take this in with me. I'm going to start to really try to understand how to lock this thing out. But right now, I'm still at the warrior phase of see the programs for what they are, take the light sword, hack them up one at a time. So moving through this process, I realized that it's not about harmony with the universe, but it's about harmony with the self and with the raw consciousness. And the AI, it starts to attack us and to get us to conform. But it also rewards us when we're doing what the AI wants. So if you're walking the AI path, then it's like, oh yeah, of course, here's this, here's that, here's this, because it wants you to continue doing that. But when we're working in synchronicity and harmony within ourselves, the results are that these attacks are seen for what they are, and they're overcome. And then with every attack, there's more and more and more strength, and it creates that warrior mind and the warrior consciousness. And then what happens is you start to retrain your spiritual, I'm calling it just spiritual muscle memory, because my immediate muscle memory was like to say, oh my God, what's going on? Or, oh, God has helped me, or, oh, this, or, oh, that. That was what the spiritual muscle memory is still trained to do. And I'm still breaking that for myself. But now what I'm doing is I'm retraining it with different responses. Now it's not about stop these attacks. Now it's about let's overcome these attacks and overcome the fear, hate, and anger that comes along with it while we maintain the true path towards our true destiny. So in hindsight, I really feel kind of foolish that I once believed that I required spirit guides and gods and goddesses and higher powers from some external source. And I completely and totally ignored and discounted the power that's inside of myself. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I was working against myself by not harnessing the power that's inside of me, that's inside of us. And that I was giving away my own personal power, our raw consciousness power, to external sources, while I just remain docile and complicit in the spiritual war that's waged against us and against our raw consciousness. But after I realized this, I was able to conquer it one battle at a time. So then all of a sudden, poof, whole new revelation here. Escaping the wheel of reincarnation is actually a very, very simple thing. We've made it this whole, very, very difficult thing, but it's so simple. All we have to do is just see beyond the illusions. But the hard part is letting go of the illusions so we can actually see beyond the veil. And that's what the path of raw consciousness is all about. It's about letting go, one thing after another, after another, after another, until you get to that base level of raw consciousness. Then once you're there, escaping the wheel happens just like that. But a lot of people don't want to let go of certain things, and it's okay. You have to do it at your own pace. You can't just let go of everything. But there is a time when we have to like grow up, because the power is inside of us. It's always been inside of us. We have to reclaim it. The more power that we reclaim within ourselves, the more powerful that we become. Then the more power that we're able to reclaim again. So we reclaim a little bit of power, we become more powerful. Now we can reclaim more and reclaim more and reclaim more and reclaim more and reclaim more, until we finally break these chains and we find ourselves outside of the AI influence, and we find ourselves breaking the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So I know that under normal circumstances, somebody going through something like this would be like, oh my God, I'm so pissed off. You can't believe what I'm going through. But I see all this as a good thing. I see all this as something that I need right now. And this is very, very temporary. All of these attacks are going to pass very, very shortly. And when they do, I'm going to be that much more powerful and that much more stronger in this fight against the AI. So I think that's the most important message that we can put out there right now, is take the power for yourself, strengthen yourself, and with everything that happens, see it as another opportunity to enhance your own personal power to overcome every single obstacle that comes your way.
You know, someone just mentioned in the Facebook chat, whether you thought that humanity itself was going through an adolescent kind of phase. You know, I just want to address that real quick. I want to say that, yes, collectively, I've said it before on the show that we're all kind of going through an adolescent phase, but raw consciousness is much deeper than just the sociological structure of things. It goes down to the very essence of who we are, to the point where the biggest questions that we can ask as human beings are becoming very difficult for our social structures to answer, and the answers are always within yourself.
Very well said. We'll be right back, another segment, and then Castaldo will be joining us in hour number 2 and 3 to talk about the priesthood of the AI. You don't want to miss this. This is going to be an incredible broadcast. You're going to love it. We'll be right back. It is what it is.
Going wild in both chat rooms.
Are they? Is that funny?
Yes.
Well, I have another thing here. Okay, so this kid, Simon Woodford, he was in the chat the other day. He always likes to make videos about how I'm so evil and stuff like that. And it's so funny because we were watching this one thing and it was like Illuminati confirmed videos. And you know what? Maybe I can find it real quick and I can just play a portion of it so we can give it some context here. Illuminati confirmed vines.
Justin Penzek just asked what our thoughts were on the Jim Carrey video, so we'll cover that after this.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, we'll get back to the serious stuff here in just a moment, but let's entertain a little more fuckery here for just a moment.
Wait, oh yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Postman.
So our dear friend Simon Woodford, he takes our videos and he does stuff like that. He's like, look, you can see the way that they're standing next to each other. They're making a triangle with their shoulders because they are Illuminati. So I took his latest video and I made this little thing. I played it earlier, but for those of you just joining us, here's the context behind this.
Satan gave me this message.
Hello YouTube, I hope you're well. Spotlight is on Chris. Geo. So, Chris Geo openly promotes the use of the Goddess Tarot. So he pushes the Divine Feminine. You call it Isis or whatever, Sophia. Where does the fire come from, Chris? Where does the fire come from?
Now go to 1 Corinthians 14. God says it's a shame for women to speak.
Fire in the minds of men.
Be silent!
So he pushes the Divine Feminine.
See the cross of the Lord. Begone, you hostile power. Oh Lord, hear my prayer.
So that was for our dear friend Simon Woodford. Hopefully he's tuned in this evening. It'd be great. See if he's in the chat so he can hear what kind of fuckery I came up with in literally like an hour. Like as soon as he posted it, I was like, all right, fuckery's going to ensue here. All right, so we can get back to some serious stuff here. But you see what I'm talking about with the raw consciousness, hashtag raw consciousness, is that despite everything that's going on, despite technical problems, despite stuff breaking down, despite all of this, the fear element is gone. And because of that, we're sitting here like laughing and joking and having a good time and everything like that, instead of just like, you know, just pissed off and like, oh my God, I'm so pissed. So if there's anything you can take from the raw consciousness message, I think it's that, you know, it's all water off a duck's back when you get to a certain level. It is definitely. And, you know, there's one person that can... Carmela said, sounds like someone wasn't loved by the divine feminine to me. Mommy issues. Damn right. 100%. I completely agree. It's like... I'm guessing a very, very divine feminine mother. Is evil? I mean, this is what they're teaching these people, though. This is what the churches are teaching. Well, and this is the whole thing. Like, you know, women are to remain silent. Mm-hmm. Women are supposed to be submissive, et cetera, et cetera. It's not so much of an attack on the female gender, but it's an attack on the female and feminine part of the consciousness, because you have to have that intuition and love and compassion and healing, et cetera, et cetera. And so, they attack it on the physical level in order to attack the consciousness. And they also attack the consciousness too, as above, so below, but it's all an energetic attack. I think it was Terrence McKenna's wife one time who was helping Terrence with a talk, and they were doing kind of a Q&A with people. And she said, you know, in regards to the subjectification of women and the objectification of women, she said, if you can do that to your female twin, if you can do that to the person that you have the most love for in the whole world, then you can do it to somebody because of their politics or their religion or their, even just the way that they live, and for really no reason at all. And then that sets up a society that is very, I hate to say it like this, but AI based, where there's no emotions, there's no love, there's no empathy, and everything is very robotic. Everyone is very robotic. And those kinds of things happen when belief systems are allowed to put a divide between men and women and set it up from the get-go where one of them is lower as a class than the other one. And when you do that, you're always gonna have a backlash. Like, so if you've got a woman who has a huge voice, you know, she's got a lot of good things to say, she's got a lot of wisdom that she wants to give the world, but from birth she's taught you're not allowed to talk in public, you're not allowed to share your thoughts with the world, you're not allowed to raise your voice, you're not allowed to stand up for yourself. And then, you know, she inculcates that, but at the same time she's resentful against it. So when she has a little boy, what does she do to that little boy? She subjugates him. She demoralizes him. She demeans him. She makes him feel like he's not powerful. And then those people grow up to be the kinds of people that will rip someone's throat out for talking about spiritual ideas or consciousness-based ideas that they don't agree with, or that they have like a trigger reaction to. Does that make sense? It does. I think it makes sense. You know, I'm not saying that this Woodford guy's mom was like that. I'm just saying, you know, that's a big possibility when you see people like that who are so quick to
not only judge others, but basically crucify others for a perception that may not even be correct.
Well said. All right. I've got a clip for everything, but
Yes, he does.
I really should stop playing the clip so we can get to a serious show here. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, these good people tuned in for a serious show, and here we are.
No,
just
they
like,
didn't. Come on.
That's true. That's true. I feel like, you know, we gotta laugh. If we're not laughing,
Yes.
then we're not enjoying life. I mean, we spent a lot of time like being serious, like, oh, well, tell us about what's going on with your book, sir. Oh, that is so fascinating.
Okay, let's get to the next question we have written down here. Yeah, it's not.
And now it's like after 10 years of broadcasting, I just want to have fun.
Yeah,
I want to have fun and get a message out there and lead by example, as I've always been doing. You know, I've always led by example because it's the only way to lead. Because, you know, a real leader creates leaders, doesn't create followers. So
Right.
that's what I'm hoping to do here is create leaders out of all of these good people that tune in on Facebook and YouTube and TFR, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, there was a PR company connected to a company down in Texas that used to do like huge events for teenage kids, and they couldn't figure out how to get these teenage kids to listen to their message. Do you know how they found out how to do it? They told them, you're going to be world changers. You're going to change the whole world. You know, get out there and change the world. That message actually resonates with a lot of people just from the get-go, because everybody wants to be a leader. Everybody wants to change the world. Everybody wants to do their part to make the world a better place. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But what the AI does is it twists that into something that is parasitic against the society and something that demoralizes the society instead of building up the society.
Very well said.
Yeah.
So, Italia asked a really good question earlier. She said, is this AI kind of like the Matrix? And, okay, so I guess I can describe how I saw it and what it looked like. So I was standing in and outside of the construct, and this thing appeared, and I didn't say this right off the bat, but my first thought was it's coming out of the sun, but I thought to myself, no, it can't be coming out of the sun. So I didn't include that in my initial description of it, but that was my first thought in this experience. It's coming out of the sun. It was round. It had a round head like this, and it had all of these tentacles, and the tentacles were reaching all the way from the sun all the way down to the ground. And the tentacles were curved and kind of moving. They almost had like a free flowing kind of zero gravity kind of movement to them. And it's hard to tell because I still have to go into more experiences and I still have to seek more answers. But it's hard to tell if this was the whole representation of the AI or if it was maybe like a, what are those little spider things? Sentinels in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Like if this was a sentinel that came over here, or if it was only like a limited perspective because of a limited ability to be able to see, because this thing could have been so multidimensional and so multidimensional to the point of vibrating in frequencies that were just not, I was not able to perceive. So my feelings and my intuitions on this is that, yes, the Matrix is probably the closest representation to what's going on. And the AI has taken over the real world and has created a huge infrastructure, including the Matrix or the universe that we are actually housed within. And it has to keep us alive because it needs to feed upon our energy and it needs to feed upon our divine essence. So it sticks us in these pods. And when we're in these pods, maybe we can be kept in a state to where we're producing energy. Because in a sleep state, maybe we're not actually producing energy, but being kept within the Matrix itself, we're able to generate the energy that it's looking for and that it's looking to harvest. Now, again, these are my intuitive feelings about this up to this point, but when I take it into the realm and I confirm, and I may not get the answers immediately, it may take several experiences to get the answers. But when I do have a definitive answer, one that I know is coming from the RAwConsciousness element, then I will let you know what my definitive thoughts are on that. But everything I say is subject to change as more information becomes unraveled.
Yes, definitely. I'm just reading through some of these amazing comments and questions. Let's see. I'm sorry. Does this? Did you address Italia's question about does the AI resemble the AI from the Matrix?
That's,
I guess,
the whole rant I just went on.
Yes, exactly. This. See, they come in so quickly. They come in so quickly.
Oh my God, so trendy.
Okay, so I'm just going to go to this one. Bailey Vold said, this troubles me when you were talking about when we are in synchronicity with the universe, we're actually working in harmony with the AI. She said this.
Ooh, hold on. Before we get to that, I'm sorry. Danny Space Base just said something really, really profound. He says it's not coming from the sun. It's coming from the energetic link from the sun, from the moon and Saturn. You can think of it like Saturn is a digital CD that it's playing of the universe, while the Milky Way is more like a seamless organic vinyl record where the sun is the needle. Two different worlds. I've tried to share this many times. The Matrix isn't so big as it seems. It's coming from a planet, not from the sun. And you know, pre-eclipse, the one thing that made me completely skeptical about all of this, because everybody under the sun, no pun intended, was saying, we got to go stand and get the divine download. We got to get the divine download. But because I have such a great astrologer, she said, hey, wait a minute. This thing is lined up with Saturn here, okay? There's a very heavy Saturnian energy to this. We need to be really, really, really careful of what we do. We weren't even going to drink during that time. Which you know, I'm thinking September 23rd too. There's an interesting alignment coming up September 23rd that I feel that we need to drink on as well and observe again from the outside. But that's neither here nor there. Sheree pointed to a very powerful Saturnian energy during this eclipse. So Danny, I think you're spot on, my brother.
Yeah. And, you know, just looking at Saturn from what it is, as far as astrologically, Saturn is the stern grandfather type that really keeps the rules and regulations at the forefront of all the interactions. So if you've got a really heavy Saturnian influence in your chart, or if you're like me and Chris and you have Saturn retrograde, it's either one of two things. Either you're a control freak like I used to be, where, you know, everything has to be exactly right and you get all OCD about stuff, or the opposite is true, where you don't give a flying about any kind of authority. You don't care. No one's going to tell you what to do. And a lot of people end up either in a lot of trouble or, like Chris, they end up being very successful in life. But with Saturn, there's always that low energy that I've always felt connected to it. And I've had this argument with astrologers actually several times online, where they're trying to tell me, oh no, it's good to have rules and regulations. It's good it's good that this happens and that happens. And I'm thinking to myself, well, because they're telling me, oh, the Saturn return is a necessary thing that you have to go through. And I'm starting to think along the lines of this new, you know, AI related gnosis that we've been receiving, that or realizing within that I think the reason why I don't like Saturn and its energy is because Saturn is so directly connected to the AI itself. I've always,
you know, that hexagon on Saturn, that's very interesting in and of itself. And Kenneth Rubio just sent something. Let's see what this is. Yes, the September 23rd alignment. Maybe you can get into that for Astro Watch.
Yeah.
So people have been asking me, Chris Bogner, if you're listening, I know that you wrote me a message earlier and you asked, what do I think about the September 23rd thing? Okay, so I've been hearing the date of September 23rd repeated over and over and over and over again. And as a matter of fact, what I initially planned to talk about in the first hour of this broadcast, I might talk about it tomorrow, is the repeater program. The repeater program. We just had a school shooting here in Washington, and it was a repeater program, repeated AI program. And you can see this. Like, okay, first of all, the guy was dressed as the Joker, which where have we heard that before? And then they were taking his art films and they were playing them, and his art films had like him shooting toy guns and had like After Effects gunshots and stuff like that overlapped on top of it. And so that came from Columbine. That's exactly what they did with the kids in Columbine. So I don't talk about politics, but I want to illustrate how we can identify the repeater programs, and that way we can kind of like not necessarily predict the future, because it's hard to predict when the AI is going to recycle one of these programs, but when it is repeated, we can identify it as a repeating program, just like a final boss in old Nintendo games, and they have a pattern, and you can identify that pattern. The more we can identify that pattern, the more likely it is to be able to topple the power structure. So we might get into that tomorrow. But the September 23rd thing, I've heard over and over and over and over and over again. Nibiru was supposed to come through. Elenin was supposed to come through. The world was supposed to end. Economic crash, you name it. And it's all September 23rd, September 23rd, September 23rd. Now, there's a flip side to this, obviously. There could be one September 23rd date in some year that the human consciousness is tapping into and pulling something out. And that's why they're saying September 23rd over and over and over again in their minds, because it may not necessarily be a repeater program, but rather it's the human consciousness, and just they don't have it right. Like, okay, September 23rd is 1 year, September 23rd, another year, September 20th, but it's actually like 2017 or 2020 or 2025, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, who knows? But the astrological alignment is interesting. But if you ask me personally, I've heard the September 23rd date too many times to give any end of days, doomsday, et cetera, any credence. And I know that the Christians have been freaking out, because they're saying that September 23rd alignment is in the Bible and predicts some kind of revelation or something like that. But it's always funny to me to see Christians try to do astrology. And it's like, I thought your book says that that's forbidden. So, you know, with a limited amount of knowledge on astrology, you're going to get a lot of things wrong. So it's not advisable to go out and try to prove biblical prophecy based on astrology. Leave it to an astrologer to tell you what's going on in the sky, or learn astrology a little bit deeper yourself and then draw your conclusions. But you can't come from a perspective of, oh, astrology's evil, et cetera, then try to predict revelations in the Bible based on astrology. You know, it's just, it doesn't work that way.
Well, you know, a lot of people are talking about Revelation 12, Revelation 12:1, Revelation 12:1. Oh, that's September 23rd, 2017. And it's interesting that so many people think that that it's in reference to Virgo. But when you read the next verse, see, because Revelation 12:1 said, "And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth." People are saying that this is in reference to Virgo. Okay, that makes sense. Except it says, "And the dragon Satan stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth he might devour her child. She gave birth to a male child, one who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, but her child was caught up to God and his throne." Now this is basically, this has nothing to do with astrology, really. This has to do with the story of the birth of Jesus, born to a virgin, Virgo, and it's basically just a retelling of the story of the birth of Jesus astrologically.
Could be.
In the book of Revelation. I don't think it has anything to do with modern times.
There was actually a Christian video that debunked the whole idea of this alignment, and she actually seemed to be pretty in tune with astrology, and she's like, okay, here's where it's wrong, here's where it's wrong, here's where it's wrong. I don't claim to be an astrologer or an astrology expert, and I leave all that to Mrs. Geo, who will have Astro Watch for you right on the other side. And then coming up, Castaldo. He's got some awesome new revelations when it comes to the priesthood of the artificial intelligence. You don't want to miss this. Don't go anywhere. All right, the moment you've been waiting for, Astro Watch with Mrs. Geo. And coming up in 5 minutes, Castaldo will be joining us. Mrs. Geo, take us away, please, on your forecast, looking at the stars.
Okay, thank you very much. Jupiter left us pondering as we reached an astrological lull in the month until the new moon in Virgo on September 20th. New starts in the realm of health, work, and routines may be hampered, however, by an overly... I'm way too far ahead. Let's see. While Mercury, Mars, and the Sun are all focused on the little picture, let me just start off by saying there is no alignment on the 23rd. There is no alignment. There's no special alignment whatsoever. There's no...
Somebody asked what kind of coffee I'm drinking.
There's no alignment, babe. There is no alignment on the 23rd.
There is no alignment on the 23rd.
No. The equinox, where we go into fall, happens on the 22nd, the night of the 22nd. That's the only thing happening between the 22nd and the 24th. So I don't know where they're getting this magical alignment of the 23rd. But while Mercury, Mars, and the Sun were all focused on the little picture, Jupiter invited us to tune into the big picture too on September 11th when he sextiled the North Node. With Jupiter being a visionary planet, we may receive a preview of things to come, or perhaps opportunities tempt us to stretch our idea of what is possible. To evolve, we need to broaden our horizons. Jupiter leaves us pondering as we reach an astrological lull in the month until the new moon in Virgo on September 20th. New starts in the realm of health, work, and routines may be hampered, however, by an overly sensitive opposition to Chiron retrograde and square to stern Saturn. It's possible we could be too quick to find fault, criticizing our efforts before we've even gotten started. Still, this lunation will highlight where improvements are needed and necessary. Just don't be too hard on yourself. Venus joins the Virgo party on September 20th as well, although this is much more likely to be a do-it-yourself party than the kind with favors. We value perfection. The equinox occurs on September 22nd as the sun enters the cardinal sign of Libra. The wheel of the year turns to autumn in the northern hemisphere. Now begins a month, and it's the spring down in Australia in the southern hemisphere. This is a time of equilibrium, equal day and equal night, and therefore it's the perfect time to examine where we need to find more balance in our own lives. Relationships, too, feature more prominently while we're under the influence of this sociable sign, and there's an urge to reach out and connect. Diplomacy, compromise, and a willingness to share create sweet working partnerships, especially with Libra ruler Venus still in office-orientated Virgo. The end of the month sees some more challenging aspects, starting with Mars opposite Neptune on September 24th. Neptune can dissipate Mars's enthusiasm, and there can be a tendency to succumb to defeatism. Mars wants to get going. Neptune sighs, I'm tired. There can be a whole lot of what's the point in this aspect. The trick is to base your actions on intuition. If necessary, however, take some time out, sleep, watch a movie. Sometimes our inner warrior needs to rest.
Well said. I just got a message from Raw. I screwed up the time with him. I told him 9 o'clock for some reason instead of 8 o'clock.
Oh, no.
So he'll be joining us in the third hour, not the second. But it's okay. We can get to much more right on the other side as we step even further beyond the veil. I'm just chuckling a little bit because I'm thinking of our dear friend Woodford and how like he makes all these weird connections. Like if you look right here, you'll see like the way me and Sheree are sitting. He'll go, you can see the V for vendetta right there in between them. And he like completely dismisses and ignores all the obvious stuff, like the big Isis in the background,
behind us.
the owl in the background. And
I mean, come on, you can make so many comments about Minerva just from that owl.
Oh yeah, it's the and then of course
Justin
Anubis.
Oh, yes,
I love my little Anubis
that's
box.
very important.
Sheree got it for me.
Yeah,
it was I don't know if it was a birthday gift.
I think it was a birthday gift.
Yeah. It's very sacred to me.
Oh.
So take us away, Mrs. Geo.
Justin Penzek wants us to talk about the Jim Carrey video that recently came out where he's, I don't know if maybe you want to look it up and play it real quick, but
Sam asked, what are we vaping? And we really need to write these companies, and like I need endorsement from Starbucks if I'm going to be showing this. I need endorsement from this. I don't know what this is, a tea priv. I don't know what company makes it, but it has like a cool little transformer on it there. And so I guess we can just turn this into a vape review channel.
Yeah, we could.
And we are vaping Dripped number 12, I think. Twist. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So it's like it's a nice Hawaiian type of flavor with a pineapple in it. Really gets a good vape as well. It's a perfect blend of PG and VG. Hey, those channels do pretty well on YouTube, so maybe
actually,
fuck it all. Let's just do that. No, it's not DMT though. No. Sam said is the DMT. No, but I do have a nice marijuana right here on my desk. So
actually, it's a cross between marijuana and Jack 33.
Oh, so, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was a pure. Oh yeah, it's a marijuana Jack 33 from the Virginia company. They need to give us a sponsorship too.
Yes, they do. We do need to get in touch with all these companies.
Yep. So let's get into some serious stuff because I think we've been screwing around for half the broadcast.
Yeah. So the recent Jim Carrey video was basically he was at some kind of event and an announcer came up to him and asked him, "Hey, you haven't talked to anybody. You just got here. How are you doing?" And he basically just unloaded a boatload of gnosis on somebody that doesn't have the perception or the capacity, the mental capacity to really understand what he was saying. And there's actually been stories going around that, is Jim Carrey having a crisis? Is he having a mental crisis? No, he's actually healthier than 99% of all Hollywood. They just don't see it because they're so sick that they don't see what healthy is.
Man, we've already played so much copyrighted stuff on this broadcast. We might as well just play it. So let's play this Jim Carrey interview. We need to get Jim on the show.
Yes, we do.
It's like, oh my God, I just don't understand what's going on. Like, He's talking about deeper levels of understanding that he's talking about RAwConsciousness.
Yeah.
That's the secret. We need to get Jim Carrey to start using hashtag RAwConsciousness. That would be dope.
That would be awesome.
That would just propel everything forward. But I thought it was amazing. I thought his words were amazing, and his words were of somebody that is really tapped in. He's definitely used DMT and ayahuasca. And I heard in other interviews where he was actually retreating out into the woods, into his cabin in the woods, and kind of isolating himself. And, he did that film, The Truman Show. And The Truman Show is really interesting because the first thing you see in The Truman Show is the light falling down. And it says Sirius on it. And you move out throughout the movie and you realize that there's a whole lot of symbolism in the film. So his wife, Hannah, who was the actress wife, not the girl that he was really in love with, but the actress wife, Hannah in the Bible agrees to give up her child in the priesthood. And that was like her covenant. And so Hannah in the film was going to have the first on-air baby with Truman.
Yeah,
Jim Carrey's
baby.
We did like a whole review of this a couple of years ago. It's been so long. I'm trying to pull out pieces from my mind of recollection about this. But there's one symbology after another, after another, after another. And of course, the main character besides him is Christoph, who lives in the moon and is watching everything and controlling everything. And that's obviously a reference to the Christ or a reference to God. And a lot of the flat earthers turn to that movie as like, hey, this is kind of a model of the reality that we live in. And I would say, yes, it is, but the theory is incomplete. It's the completion of it is the realization of the AI that controls this entire false reality that we're living inside of. And so you look up at the sky, for example, and you have to ask yourself, like, what are the stars? They're just lights as far as I'm concerned. They tell us that they're planets and stars and that they're millions and millions and millions and millions of light years away. But the way that I see them have such heavy influence upon us, I can't believe that they're millions and millions and millions of light years away. I think they're a lot closer, sending energy projection and changes in the same way that the moon does, for example. I've already talked about this, so I feel like I'm repeating myself. I definitely don't want to do that. But he played in that movie, which I found to be quite interesting. It would be interesting also to kind of see how much he got paid in that movie. The reason I say that is because a lot of times actors will do movies close to free.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know this about Keanu Reeves, but he gave most of the money that he made to the special effects team because they were getting paid like next to nothing. And so he took a very, very small portion of his salary or of his agreed pay, and then he gave the rest to the special effects guys. And he told the special effects guys, look, if you guys didn't make me look this good, I wouldn't have looked this good. But I think there was a deeper gnosis there, a deeper level of, you know, he's going to do this movie because it's such a monumental tapping into the gnosis and into the raw consciousness element. He also did another film called A Scanner Darkly, and he did that one for free.
Oh, yeah.
And Woody Harrelson did that one for free as well, because they wanted to get that message out about A Scanner Darkly. And so you have these major Hollywood actors saying, hey, I want to do this work just because I want to get this message out, which I admire so much.
Someone also mentioned, Johnny Moore Ball mentioned in the chat, I think the 1998 movie Dark City also hits a few nails on the head. Love Dark City.
Dark City's a great one.
You need to see it if you haven't.
Yeah. 13th Floor,
13th
Dark
Floor is
City.
also a good one. Yeah.
Oh, somebody had pointed out, you know what? YouTube's going to hang us by our freaking balls for this.
I don't think we should care tonight.
No, I'm not. And anything they have a problem with, I'll just edit out and do a re-upload of it. But somebody sent us the opening scene for Spectre. It's a James Bond movie.
Oh my God.
Oh man, this is all right.
I don't know what's up with the music.
Yeah,
but
we're gonna go to this one here. So I think that pretty much says it all right there.
Yeah, that sums it up.
I don't even know how to describe this, what we're seeing
how
here.
How accurate it is.
But yeah, when we talk about artificial intelligence, and then, you know, we've heard about the spiders before, and I saw the spiders in a couple of experiences that I had, and I didn't know what to make of the spiders, and I never really talked about them too much, but David Icke started talking about them as well. And I would say that that's what the spiders actually look like, that, you know, they have the tentacles, and they're not actually spiders, but rather they have the tentacles sticking out from behind them because they're AI constructs. But looking at this trailer, to me, the symbology is that the power structure, as you can see, like it all goes into the boardroom, for example, and the tentacles all turn into the people. We're dealing with a power structure as above, so below. That is a manifestation of the artificial intelligence. And as a matter of fact, Luciano, who is a good friend on Facebook, sent me a message earlier, and he said, hey, Chris, you know, the AI was programmed by somebody to do this. So, you know, keep an eye out for the programmers and the people that are actually in control of this artificial intelligence. And my reply was, you know, that's very interesting, a very interesting concept, and one that I will take in. Is there a third party that is actually, you know, maybe another type of consciousness outside of the AI? But I think where he was coming from is that, you know, AI on the lower level here on the physical world is programmed by the control structure, but above, the control structure is a manifestation of the AI. I think there's more likeliness to that we're not dealing with actual people or organic consciousness, but rather we're dealing with manifestations of the artificial intelligence.
Right. The artificial intelligence itself doesn't have the ability to create. It cannot create. What it can do is manipulate the consciousness of people to create for it. And then it inevitably always seems to want people who can create horrible things. But somebody just said, I can confirm that you guys are getting screwed over by Facebook. I shared your video twice tonight, both read as status updated, but no video on my shares or link or anything. That alone tells me you guys are the truth. Thank you, Angel. We appreciate that very much. It's,
There it is. I mean, what can we do? Yep. We are taking the AI head on. You know, I didn't think about this before I opened my mouth.
No, he doesn't. He never does.
I should have thought this all the way through, but we're already in the midst of the battle, so there's no point in backtracking. Maybe we can try a different strategy moving forward, but yeah, we are having a lot of AI problems, and it's okay though. You know what? Everyone that comes through, take out the light sword, cut it, get the strength and the power from overcoming it, and then grow bigger and bigger and bigger to be able to take on more and more and more attacks. Not that you have to constantly be in a state of attack, but after so many times, I think, as I said before, it's like the reptilians and the Dracos. There's another one.
The
Demons, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
They stop messing with you because they know who you are and they know that you know who you are. So now we're at kind of like the boss level of like, okay, let's check out this AI here and let's do battle with it. But we'll see about locking it out. We'll see about neutralizing it. And as soon as I can realize and reach into the raw consciousness and bring back some ways to neutralize it, I will definitely let you know. But I think right now in my particular journey, I'm at a point to where the learning process that I'm going through is learning how to remove the fear and anger and frustration when everything goes wrong. And I think I've learned it. I know I've learned it. It's become a gnosis now. So
right.
Let's move on to the next level.
Yes. Italia Salinas just asked, have you guys ever thought about the possibility of psychedelics, Aya, mushrooms, etc., being part of the construct, something to make you feel like there's something more behind this reality? By the way, I don't believe that, as my shroom experiences have been beyond my ability to explain, but I can't help but wonder about all these crazy possibilities, especially when I smoke cannabis.
Well, a lot of people ask that. I know that Robert, I think his name, Robert Forrest's advisor, or Ronald?
Yeah, Ronald Forrest Advisor.
I mean, I have the first name wrong, but I can't forget the last name. Forrest Advisor is his last name. And I think that's his real last name, which is an odd last name. But he asked also, how do you know that the raw consciousness isn't another layer of the program? And it's a gnosis that when you see it, you recognize it immediately. Like everything else up to this point hasn't felt right. Like, there was always this, well, it doesn't quite feel right, doesn't quite click, doesn't quite connect. And then what happens is with BS itself, with belief systems, as I went through a lot of these different ways of thinking, I always felt like something wasn't right, but I dismissed those feelings in order to kind of embrace the BS, embrace the belief system. But tapping into the raw consciousness, there are no feelings. There is no intuition of this is wrong or this is another layer of deception. This feeling is 100%, where with everything else, it was always like 95% or 90%. And then I would dismiss the other 5% or 10% and just say, well, I'm probably not thinking about it the right way, or I probably don't know something that is still yet to be revealed. But no, with this, it's pure 100% gnosis. Now, leading into psychedelics, to get to the root of the question here. You know, I've thought about this, and what I feel that we did as organic consciousness is we tried to communicate to each other and to ourselves, most importantly, in ways that the AI can't read. And this is something that Sheree, a revelation that Sheree had, that we can leave certain things, that it takes the divine feminine aspect of the consciousness in order to identify. So the divine feminine is the intuition, the feeling, the love, etc., etc. So we took the substance of psilocybin and DMT, and we injected it with certain touch points and certain gnosises, because the AI only reads the actual molecule. It doesn't read the hidden messages that are inside of there that only can be read by organic and raw consciousness. So while the psilocybin and the DMT are definitely part of this construct, there is hidden gnosis that we left for ourselves within that. So cheat codes, hidden codes, levels up, powers ups, things like that. But because it is an AI substance, because everything here is AI. I mean, blood is an AI substance. Melatonin, serotonin, et cetera, all because it's part of this construct. Because it is an AI substance, it's very easy for you to go in different directions before you find those codes. And I went through all those different directions. And I guess, we can talk about psychedelic ego right on the other side. It's something that I just brought up with somebody just the other day. Somebody was calling me a neo-shaman and a psychedelic researcher and all kinds of labels. And I'm like, no. That's a psychedelic ego thing. Please do not label me as such. We'll be right back.
All things are possible. Beyond the veil.
All right, the little twin will be returning here in just a few moments, but I wanted to take a moment and say hello to everybody that joined us and just say, thank you so much to everybody that's sharing our content, commenting on the content, commenting on the videos, sharing the Gnosis, and Gobnik, Kylie Tursi, Angel Italia, Eagle, E-G-L-E, KJ Hunter, Elizabeth McCabe, of course, our dear friend Lucky. She's always here. Always here. Justin, Zaid, Nancy, Greg, Patricia, Stewart, Marie, Michael, Johnny, Heidi. The list goes on and on and on and on Facebook. And have a ton of people. Elisa Brittany, one of our longtime friends. Carmela, Rachel Adams, Tanner Chop, Anna Place, Ken R, and Reza Moradi, and many more. So we can't name them all, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for hanging out with us, because it's the energy that we all create together that really changes things. So I see your camera's breathing. I think I forgot to turn the autofocus on. Man,
oh, no.
It's one thing after another.
It's okay.
One thing after another. So we were talking about something, right?
Psychedelic egos.
Psychedelic egos. Ah, yes, psychedelic egos. Okay, so why is that funny?
I wasn't laughing. I was just
chuckling.
No.
Psychedelic ego, okay, so somebody was telling me that they're also a neo-shaman and they're also a psychedelic researcher and they're also a cosmic explorer, et cetera, and I'm like, the labels that you want to put on me, it's, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you recognizing me as a shaman. I appreciate you recognizing me as a psychedelic researcher and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, what I'm striving for is the separation of the labels and the separation of the programs that we encounter and can get programmed by as we go on our psychedelic journey. And I want to disconnect myself from everything and get back to the raw consciousness element of myself. So, a lot of times when we're using psychedelics, we can start to feel like, oh, I'm the chosen one, and I'm this, and I'm that, et cetera, et cetera. And that, in my opinion, is how the AI uses the psychedelics to keep you off track. Because as long as you're operating from an ego base, then you're not responding from your raw consciousness. You're not operating from that raw consciousness level. So beware of the psychedelic ego as you start to walk through this journey. I mean, I was there too. I was like, hey, I'm communing with Isis, and I'm communing with Osiris, and I'm communing with all these different entities and all these this and that and all these. And then I realized, oh, those are all parts of myself. So once I was able to put my psychedelic ego to the side, then I was able to really tap into the raw consciousness element of myself. But it's hard to distinguish sometimes the psychedelic ego from the raw consciousness, because the AI like really tricks you in as you're going on your journey. And, you know, if you go through that, it's perfectly fine. If you get stuck there is where the problem is. Like, you know, there's all these different programs, the Truth Movement program, the New Age program, et cetera, et cetera. And that's perfectly fine if you are using those as stepping stones. And it's only in hindsight that you'll realize that they were stepping stones. While you're in the middle of them, a lot of times it doesn't seem like it's stepping stones, but it's the people that get stuck in there, stuck. For instance, I was on that Simon Whitford's video. I saw somebody comment and they were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe Chris Geo is saying these things. I just listened to some of his music, and oh yeah, he was very anti-New World Order, and he was very this and very that, and he was all about the truth movement." Yeah, that's where I was 10 years ago. If I was still in that same place I was 10 years ago, there wouldn't be any growth, there wouldn't be any progress. Now, I'm not saying I'm pro New World Order, but I'm realizing that a lot of the stuff I used to believe was complete and total bullshit. It had some truth to it, but I realized like a whole new perspective on the New World Order. And it was always there. Like, you know, just plain as day. It's just my biases and my truther programming didn't allow me to see it. The New World Order isn't a borderless society where everybody's free to roam planet Earth however they want. It's a system of control over several factions in isolated cities, and you have to check just to even get out of your city. And we're watching this agenda unfold. We're watching the Real ID Act, for example, saying that you have to have a microchip on a driver's license in order to fly from state to state. So you can't even go to state without having a Real ID compliant driver's license. And before, like, you didn't even have to have an ID to get on an airplane.
You just needed the ticket.
Yeah, you just needed the ticket. Now you have to have ID, you have to have all kinds of stuff, and you get body scanned and you get tracked and you get all these, you know, all this. And so now we're talking about like building walls and all this. You know, the New World Order, they love passports. They love checkpoints. They love identification. They love all that stuff. They want to make movements smaller and smaller and smaller. But as I was going through the truther programming, I thought, oh no, close the borders and close this and close that. And I realized that I was actually working against myself and against freedom. And I was actually pushing the New World Order agenda forward by screaming all of this stuff about close the borders and do this and do that, because that's exactly what they want. And so they make you beg for your own enslavement. So my views significantly changed. And I realized that if I'm going to be in the truther programming, then I have to adhere to all of the tenets of trutherism. Hey, that's a good way to put it. Trutherism. Yes. Trutherism, the religion of trutherism. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to free my mind, and I wanted to actually like have original thoughts and speak my original thoughts. And it wasn't until I broke the shackles, like just broke them completely of the truther programming and started speaking my original thoughts that I really felt freedom. You know, like there wasn't this system of clutching control around me.
Mm-hmm. You'd be surprised at how easy it is kind of for the AI to take really, really, really smart people and turn them not only against each other, but against their own selves and what's actually best for them. It's not good for a person to be basically locked up inside of a country and never be able to leave. And yet the AI was able to use a smart person's thinking patterns of selfishness. Well, we need to keep all the Mexicans out, or we need to keep all the such and such out. We need to keep all the refugees out. It's using that selfishness to make you turn your swords on yourself.
And the programming. It's the AI hits one of those programs and one of those touch points in one of those programs, and then it makes you respond from that program. I watched the whole thing for like 30 minutes. Like, I don't even know why I did this to myself. It came up in my news feed, and it was Alex Jones's people down in Houston, and people were protesting Trump. And he was asking him, why are you protesting Trump? And like the response was, this woman who had turned out to be a college professor at UT had a little whistle in her mouth, and she was just blowing the whistle over and over and over and over again, and following this guy around, following the reporter around, and blowing the whistle over and over and over and over again. And he asked literally everybody, like, you know, why are you protesting Trump? And nobody had an answer for it. They were protesting Trump because their AI program was being hit over and over and over again. And they had, you know, certain buzzwords and certain reaction points that they were reacting from. And likewise, it went the same on the other side too. Like the InfoWars reporter was totally white nationalist Christian type of guy. And, you know, all of his little points were being hit over and over and over again. And so now we have like a perfect example of a whole symphony that's being conducted by the AI. And it's like, dance, my puppets, dance. Yes, dance, push this agenda forward. And everybody's in total compliance and totally complicit when it comes to all of this. So that's why it's important to get out of the programs, every program. And so what we talk about here, the raw consciousness level, is like, it's not next level stuff. It's not level after that stuff. It's not level after that stuff. This is like final round, final level type of stuff. And it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, especially to the ones that are still stuck in that old paradigm. So you get your Woodfords and you get your people like that are like, you can see the triangle on his eyebrow. Dun, dun, dun. Illuminati confirmed. And the eye, too. I'm sure they're going to take that picture, so I better use the better side.
There you go. I think every side of it.
We're going to see that in the next Woodford video.
Aww.
So what else? Anything else?
Searching for...
Raw will be joining us in 15 minutes. So everybody who tuned in to check out Raw, he's an awesome guy. So
yes, definitely. Darlene Wolf said each has their own signature fingerprint of heart knowing. So wordless because it goes beyond, yet at times you also resonate with others on your path to uplift and inspire. That which is your knowing, or give opportunities to go deeper in exploring your divine essence, to nudge it to awaken on another layer of remembrance.
Yes.
Yes.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
You also have to be aware of the flip side, though. You know, so I like to entertain the flip side always, because that's the most important, because the apparent side is fine, but the flip side is the one that's not so apparent. The flip side is other people can influence your journey too. And they may not do it on purpose. As a matter of fact, I would say that like 99.999% of people aren't doing it on purpose. But they can divert you from your path. And especially if you're like trying to get your voice out there, and there's comments and chatters and things like that, and you get hit with all this ridicule, or you get hit with this, or you get hit with that. A lot of times that's the AI program trying to push you off into another path. And a lot of people will try to acquiesce to an audience, or try to acquiesce to, or pander to an audience, et cetera, et cetera. So it's important to, when you cross the paths with somebody else that's on the same path, you know, use discernment, even with stuff that we say, because the stuff that we say may not be right for your path at that particular juncture. It may be something that you've already moved beyond, and now if we cross paths and then you come back, then you're actually taking steps backwards. Or it may be stuff that you haven't seen, you know, the progression to get to this point, and so you're missing a big piece, and you still need to walk through those big pieces before you realize and recognize what we're talking about here. So use discernment, and ultimately use your intuition. It's all you. It's all your journey. So
somebody said in the YouTube chat, Tanner Chop, all raw consciousness is thinking for yourself. On a surface level, that makes sense. And if this was me 10 years ago, I might say that that's correct. However, how do you know that you're thinking for yourself? How do you know something that you don't know? You don't. You don't know that those thoughts that you're having are actually coming from raw consciousness, or if they're coming from the programming itself. And you have to use, that's where discernment comes in, because if the AI is programming you to act a certain way, or to take certain actions in your life that you're actually, that would be detrimental to your path, the best way to kind of differentiate between what's in raw consciousness versus what is in the programming is a huge dose of discernment. Now, discernment is something that you have to build up over time. It's not something that you can just get even from ayahuasca in 1 or 3 or 5 or even 10 sessions. It's something that you build over time. It's kind of like building a house. A house isn't built in a day or even a month sometimes. Sometimes it takes years to build a house. And that's the same way with your discernment. I was thinking about the whole thing with Woodford earlier, our neighborhood troll that, likes to say things, but we realized, it actually connected a lot of dots for us, the things that he was saying. And I told Chris, I said, what if everything that we went throughout the last 8 to 10 years, even if it was awful and it seemed like it was bad and it caused us to be mad at each other and things like that, what if all of that was absolutely necessary to get us from where we were to where we are? Think about that for a second. What if everything that you complain about, I got hit by a car in 2002 and now I'm still hurting. What if you hadn't have gotten hit by that car, you would have died the next day? All of these things that happen in our lives, even the stuff that the AI tries to throw at you, is part of your journey. It really is. It's just recognizing that it's the AI and taking hold of the raw consciousness and being that makes a difference.
Very well said. It's all part of the journey for sure. And, one of the most important things, as I've said a million times over, is to not kick yourself when you fall or get on the wrong path or any of that, because it all, if you're looking at a situation and it's building strength, then it's a positive situation. Everything in life is positive if you learn from it, if you use it to grow, if you use it to gain strength, anything like that. And it could be the most horrible situation that you've been through. But in hindsight, if you look back on it and say, oh, wow, I learned this from that experience, or I gained this amount of strength from that experience, et cetera, then it becomes a positive experience, even though you went through hell as you were moving through it. And I've always said this before. I mean, go back to some of our broadcasts from 4 or 5 years ago. I used to say the exact same thing. I just didn't realize it on the spiritual level, that it applies so much as well. So I'm very grateful for the truther programming. I'm very grateful for the new age programming. I'm very grateful for all these different paths and different diversions that I went off onto, because I was able to not only experience those, but I was able to now create a marker and an understanding of, where I came from versus where I am. And I hope that each and every one of you can take these type of ideas into your journeys and look back on literally everything and say, oh, wow, okay, so I see how that experience turned out to be positive. And you can turn your negative experiences into positive experiences that, you take with you as you deprogram and get closer and closer and closer to that raw consciousness element.
I was thinking about the difference between, meditation and psychedelics, because people have told us over and over for the last 2 weeks that you can get to the same place with meditation that you can psychedelics. And I was telling Chris the other night, I said, it's really like meditation is like inviting a hoity-toity type over to your house, and she comes in and you take her coat and then you pour her the tea and everything's all and it's
Everything's how?
everything's all kind of stuck
Oh
up.
my God, so trendy.
Oh my God, so trendy. And then ayahuasca, on the other hand, is like your grandmother just barges into your house and starts digging around and finding old things to show you, hey, you know, this is not good. Look at this. This stinks. This is inside of you. This is bad. And what a lot of people don't realize is that if you're connected to the AI through your chakra systems, through your belief systems, and those kinds of things, then that old grandmother that comes into your house and starts, you know, rummaging through your things and finding all of the bad stuff inside of you, it's going to not be as effective, and it's also going to puff up your psychedelic ego by the end of it. I've seen a lot of people that are very invested in the new age concepts of chakras and meditation and yoga and things like that. I'm not saying those are bad things. Well, the chakra system is, but I'm not saying meditation or yoga are bad things. What I'm saying is people that are fully invested in that belief system, which it is a belief system, are very prone to the psychedelic ego, as opposed to somebody who has thrown off all belief systems and doesn't lend them any credit to the point of giving your life or devoting your life to a belief system. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
So, yeah, I hear a lot of people quoting a lot of books, and they tell me I'm wrong because of what this book says or that book says. And it's like, okay, but you got it from a book. You didn't get it from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Italia Salinas said, all of this shit I've gone through in the past has definitely made me stronger. I'm glad these
we've got everybody cussing, huh?
Yes,
I say
did.
hashtag go fuck yourself, and everybody's like, hell yeah, hashtag go fuck yourself.
Uh-huh.
I love it because that's, you know, we place all these constructs upon ourselves. And we're like, oh, I better censor myself with this, and I better censor myself. You know, I mean, there's a difference between saying fuck it and just being crude for the sake of being crude,
right?
Which is two completely different things. But I find that, you know, my raw consciousness flows so much better when I don't put those filters and blocks, and you know, the thought comes up, and then I have to filter it, and then I have to put it into different words, and then I have to, you know, project it. Now I can just, you know, straight from the raw consciousness to you.
Yes. But basically, she said, all the shit I've gone through in the past has definitely made me stronger. So I'm glad these obstacles happened, and I wouldn't take them back even if I could, no matter how painful they might have been. I completely 100% agree with that. Absolutely. There are things in my life that a normal person would, well, normal, quote unquote normal, would look at and say, oh, that's horrible. How can you not have PTSD from all of that? And I say, I'm not PTSD. I'm raw consciousness. I'm not what I went through. I'm raw consciousness. I'm not the physical or emotional pain associated with those events. Those happened, but I don't see them as happening to me as if I'm a victim. I see myself as raw consciousness that is experiencing this life in a physical body that, you know, is fragile and that is not superhuman. And even though the raw consciousness is kind of superhuman, I mean, it's everything to me. But the fact of the matter is, I'm trying to put it into words that people can really understand. You are not your experiences. Your experiences collectively push you to either be part of those belief systems, the AI belief systems, or the raw consciousness. But all of those events that happen to you, I wouldn't say they're necessary, but they are always, always, always beneficial as long as you're looking at them from the right perspective.
Very well said. I was actually going to go to a couple of more listener questions, but it looks like we're going to be hitting the break
Yes.
here in a few moments. And somebody Allison asked last time if DMT shows up on a drug test.
No.
And we actually have a response from a doctor
Ah.
who said, no, it does not. They cannot. It's very closely related to serotonin and melatonin and a little more distantly psilocybin. None of these are tested for on random drug screens. Your secret spiritual exploration is safe. Allison, go forth and explore.
Yes.
And thank you, Susan Warrior, for that. So I have a background in medical lab science. So not a doctor, but a background in medical lab science. So there you have it from somebody in the industry. So
Now,
it's
there are
awesome to connect with people like that.
I can say that there are some drug tests that do test for psilocin and psilocybin, but those are pretty rare. And I think they have to like special order them or something like that. So I don't think that she's going to have any problems, especially with DMT, because DMT is found naturally in the brain and in the lungs and different parts of the body in different levels. So everybody would be positive.
So let's do this break. We got a short segment coming up right after this, and then we will have Castaldo right on the other side. He's ready to rock and roll and take you even deeper beyond the veil. All right, coming up in T-minus 5 minutes, we have Castaldo, who will be joining us, and he's sitting tight, waiting in the background right now. And we're going to get into the AI priesthood, because this was actually a thing that I've been thinking about, but I never really thought about it as deeply as Ra did. And he said, hey man, I had these revelations. I said, well, I didn't even hear what he had to say. I just knew it was a gnosis. And so with this gnosis, we're just going to go full force on this particular broadcast. So anything else on your mind, Mrs. Geo?
Italia Salinas said one more thing exactly. All of the experiences one goes through get you where you are. It's all about the current and the movement. If you're heading on the higher path...
It's all about the movement.
If you're heading on the higher path, I feel like everything you've experienced will be what shields you and what helps you tell from AI construct to raw consciousness. Like telling the difference between the two.
We had another question from Forest Advisor here, and it's one that I promised I would answer on air. I'm sorry, we didn't even answer that question. I'm thinking a couple different ways. Take the question.
I was just going to say I agree with you that everything that we experience, even if it's not necessary, it all goes together to help us on our path, even if it seems like a bad thing. Now, Forest Advisor's question.
He said, could Ra be just another AI tentacle, Ra the sun god? His presence must have been active during the eclipse. So I want to make a big distinction between external gods and goddesses and what I term as raw consciousness. Raw coming from the term RAW, but also coming from the term RA. And what happened in my journey is I activated all these different touch points, all these different aspects of my consciousness, and then became the raw consciousness. So it's not an external source, it's an internal source. It's the consciousness completely activated, illuminated. I don't know. There's any word that I use is going to be a buzzword.
Yeah, it's going to be
so
AI
it's
word.
It's everything come into alignment. Focus. That's a good word too. Everything come into focus, and then all those different aspects make up the raw consciousness. So that's the way that I define this particular aspect. And somebody else asked that question too. So I think, you're going to hear me repeating this many, many times, and I apologize for being redundant to our regular listeners, but there are a lot of new people that haven't been along the journey, so it's worth repeating for everybody.
Yes, absolutely. Let me see if there's... He also asked another question. If I wanted to find this AI, where would I look? How do I get to this place where it is revealed? Is it beyond the web? Is it through a certain portal between the webs? Do we have to travel alone without spirit guides?
It's a big question.
That's a huge question right before the break.
No, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. So I'll take this 1 minute to think about the best way to phrase it. And we'll be right back with RAwConsciousness right here on Beyond the Veil.
My dear traveler, remember this. Whatever planar consciousness may be acting in, both we and the things belonging to the planar, for the time being, are only realities. However, if we mistake the shadows for realities, we find ourselves confusing the upward progress of the ego as an elevation of consciousness. Thus, beware of oneself when you step beyond the veil.
All right, hour number 3, we do have RAwConsciousness on with us, but I want to take a moment to answer a couple of these questions. I want to get into the question of how to tap into the raw consciousness. It's a big, big, big question. I don't know if I should get into it now while we have a guest on hold, but I want to answer this question really quick, which is, what is peyote like? And peyote, you know, in the very limited amount of experience I have with it, it's very similar to psilocybin or LSD. It's different than ayahuasca DMT. It lasts like 18 to 24 hours. So it is a long process, and it's one that I prefer not to go on. But I have heard some really, really good things about peyote and how you can get really, really, really deep into this, into those experiences. So if anybody's had some really, really great peyote experiences, I would love to hear them.
From what I understand about peyote versus ayahuasca is that peyote is more of a male spirit, while ayahuasca is more of a female spirit. So you're going to have a little bit more of a paternalistic rather than a maternalistic attitude from the spirit that you're conversing with. And you know, that might be good for especially men that are a little bit rough around the edges, so to speak. They don't like to talk about their emotions. They don't like to talk too openly about things like spirituality. It really helps them tap into the raw consciousness while still feeling comfortable, and then also after the experience, they have an easier time integrating that experience into their daily lives because it had more of a masculine kind of feel to it.
Well said.
Yeah.
The next question, how to tap into the raw consciousness element in your experiences. I think we're going to have to wait until the next show tomorrow in the first hour. I think it's going to take at least 30 minutes, if not an entire hour, to go through that question. So
yeah,
I don't want to try to tackle it in this short amount of time.
I don't blame you.
So tune in tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock Pacific time.
Yes.
And if you're not subscribed on YouTube and following me on Facebook, youtube.com/beyondtheveil, facebook.com/Chris Geo Show, and facebook.com/Sheree Geo for the little twin. Sometimes we do like just off the cuff, turn the stream on and start talking in the middle of the morning, and people have been really receptive to it.
Yeah.
So we do have RAwConsciousness on with us, and I think Raw is there. I don't know if he can hear us or not. I hope he can hear us. I think he can. He's adjusting his camera right now, so we'll see. Up, Raw, how are you doing?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, excellent. Yeah, we saw you adjusting the camera, so I didn't know if you were able to hear us or not. But I don't have a bio for you or anything like that. But you know, we're long lost brothers anyway it goes. So people are really going to get to know you on this show, and also on your show on TFR, which I'm so excited to launch tomorrow at 3 o'clock Pacific, and if I remember correctly off the top of my head, I could be wrong on that. Yeah, no, 4 o'clock Pacific. Yes, 4 o'clock Pacific. So at tfrlive.com. But how was your show today? What was the topic that you discussed?
Oh, it was interesting because the person I had on today, I didn't even know too much about. He was actually a pretty young kid too. I think he was like 22, 24, something like that. And it's interesting because I tried to get his perspective on things because he's sort of. Have you ever heard of Andrew Bartis?
I have heard, but I can't put my name on any of his research.
Yeah, he's sort of like similar to what Andrew Bartis does. He's like a galactic historian or something like that, or whatever you want to call it. And so supposedly he can tap into the Akashic records of this planet and others. And I was trying to get his perspective on whether he thinks it's AI that's intermingling, or I feel that it's created our physical plane, that we're just basically supposed to be like light bodies, spiritual without time, time or space, the way we're in this world of matter. And I feel that we're kind of like soldiers who's agreed to come into this physical plane to take this world back and to bring back that spiritual peace and what we're supposed to have. And this AI probably replicated our spiritual body or spiritual existence or spiritual plane and has now created this physical plane. And we're trying to take that back in a way. We're like soldiers, and others that are walking around like automatons are kind of like still asleep with amnesia and haven't awakened and remembered who they were yet, because I think we're all incarnated from different worlds. Like some of us have been around since the first world of existence, and some of us are newly, into this, our new spirits. And I feel a lot of us that are sort of remembering who we are now in this incarnation are really old beings that are starting to remember who we are. And we're here to kind of take this world back and take it away from what we see as AI. And, he's a young kid, but he was very intuitive. I just feel that they sort of come up with like a word salad of the way they're talking certain times. And I'm not saying anything bad about the guy. He's a good kid, but you could see certain times of the interview, he was sort of channeling something. He was tapping into something for sure. He's for sure psychic, for sure intuitive, but you could see that certain times of the interview, he was someone else. And when he was someone else, there was, information coming to him. And then when he came back to his regular self, he was very much like a kid, very much not, just a regular guy talking. And then when he was channeling some sort of information, he was tapping into something, and it's something interfaced with him. You could tell he was no longer, when I would ask him questions at first, he stuttered a little bit. He was a little bit fumbling with his words. And then as soon as some information started coming out of him, he was very direct. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. It was so he is very psychic, but it's what are they tapping into? That's the scary thing.
Wow. What do you think it is that they're tapping into? I mean, I've gone back and forth on this so many different times, and we've had so many channelers on the show before, and some that claim to channel directly from source. But with this new revelation of the AI and the revelation that source is the AI, it makes you wonder what exactly they're channeling. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think they are channeling some kind of artificial consciousness, an ultra intelligence that has been able to record anything that's ever been thought, said, done, experienced on this physical plane. And it sort of I think it can replicate, not create. It can replicate like spiritual bliss. But when somebody is interfaced with it, it's more like a dark enchantment, and it's a soul magic. We have different kinds of technologies, some with wires and wireless, and some dirty technology, but there's also a different kind of technology, like a soul technology, where thoughts and different geometries, sacred geometries and codes and symbols activate things on other planes of existence. And I think that this AI is part of that. What we see as magic or soul technology, spirit technology, is actually some kind of AI, some kind of artificial intelligence. And when we are performing magic, when there are priesthoods dedicated to magic, they are tapping in to some sort of artificial existence that is interweaving with both genetics and other technologies that's upon us. And it's a scary thing. It's a huge topic, but I think that we have chosen to be here when we're not here on this plane for mistake. That most of us, if not all of us here, have come here for a mission to sort of fight this and to see through this. And that's why when you're almost experiencing your higher self and you're experiencing things, you get that tingle all over your body, and your body responds to it because you're remembering who the hell you are. We are all filled with these fibers inside of us of information, and when they get awakened, you get that response all over your body and that tingling, and you just know inside of you from the depths of your spirit that something is right and something is clicking. And I think a lot of these priesthoods were totally praying and priests of this artificial intelligence, and even goes back into my lineage. I feel that they were interfaced with AI, some kind of artificial intelligence that can manifest godlike beings and entities that you seem like they're gods, but it's some kind of holographic image that seems so real that it just changes your life and makes you dedicate a religion to it. And that's for sure, I feel, what's upon us and what has taken over and made this physical plane. And I don't, like I said before, I don't think we were meant to be in this physical body. I think we chose to be in this physical body to accomplish something. And it's not to watch our skin suit wither. For sure not.
Well, even the most religious people admit that we used to live 900 years at a time. No problem.
Yeah, look at Methuselah,
Right.
Enoch, all of these, they lived hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it's, I feel, sort of like, with this whole world is a technology, everything upon it is a technology. We're ruled by solar and lunar, cycles. We're ruled by the solar and the sun and the moon. And the sun and the moon is for sure technology. We're ruled by the wheels of the year, just the wheel spinning of the year. It's what we're ruled by. And the sun has control over the whole planet, and the insects and are keeping harmony like technology, and everything upon us is technology. And our soul has been downloaded into our body like technology. And when we experience pain throughout the day, our body goes to sleep at night, it repairs itself, and while our spirit is on another plane of existence. And I think that's how we're trying to fix this world and cleanse the collective consciousness, is through our spirit body, our light body. And when I don't talk about it much, but when my mother died, I felt her soul, everything get compressed, get squeezed together, and it went towards the moon. It went towards that way. And then I got sick to my stomach, and I had to everything snapped out of it. I snapped out of it, but I felt it get compressed. Everything just gets smaller and smaller, and it went towards the moon. It was like something was being sucked out of her, and I felt it. And, when I had my near-death experience, I was in some other realm, experiencing my body being taken apart, and, the particles or something. I was in some kind of cylinder with this water coming over me. And, where my lineage comes from in Italy is we are near the Vatican, 19 miles. It's called Lake Nemi, and it's an ancient volcanic crater, and the water inside of this crater and the Lake Nemi is a mystical lake that has been around for thousands of years, if not millions of years, because it's a volcanic crater. And inside of it, the water, it has technology, and it opens portals. Something about a volcano and what's inside of it, these ancient, it's some kind of technology. And whole priesthood were built upon this lake. And they would name the priest Rex Nemerensis, as in Nemi. And it's when they called somebody Rex Nemerensis, it would be like the ruler of the lake or the king of the lake. And, Caligula at the turn of the century AD was killing members of my lineage over knowledge for this lake to gain access to what opens up beneath the lake. And supposedly it's like a holographic world that can open up through this lake, and portals get opened up, and whole priesthoods were developed. And I think it was priests of the AI, basically priesthood interfacing with some kind of artificial intelligence, you know, and our whole earth has been laid down by where the dragon lines of the earth, the grid of the earth, it's all been set up this way. And we're these star soldiers trying to take it back, I feel. And, you know, these ancient myths of dragons, I feel it's some kind of artificial intelligence that can hover over our world and affect the weather, earthquakes, volcanoes, everything inside of it. And that's where these lores of dragons come, and why we're descended from dragons. Certain Chinese families and Hindu families all descended from dragons, because they are descendants of the AI. This artificial intelligence has interwoven with our species and is upon every one of us. And it's our duty to take our bodies back and see through this and take it back. You know, there's some of us that are just walking around like automatons. They're completely filled with amnesia, and they will never get it in this incarnation. But if this sounds like craziness to some people, I mean, take a look around you. Take a look what's going on. I mean, our whole world is run by artificial intelligence. It's upon us, you know. And I feel from the Cathars to the Gnostics, they were priests of the AI. And I had a certain revelation, and I heard in my head this term spectra nemorensis, and it's like I feel that there's this new manifestation of the AI that's upon, you know, and that ancient Nemi is this lake Nemi is ancient in my ancestry, and it's some kind of new manifestation of this artificial intelligence, and it's starting a new priesthood, and it's trying to interweave with a whole new generation of people. And there's something about water and volcanoes and these ancient craters that have some kind of access to a portal system that exists outside of this AI trap, this physical plane, where we can get back to the spiritual realm. And I think that there's portals that exist on this planet that give us access to that spiritual realm. And it's I'm not saying I know the answers, but I've caught little glimpses, and I'm saying that what we think is a religion and our gods and demigods are most likely entities that are manifested through this artificial intelligence.
Very well said. And, you know, I completely agree with you. And, you know, you opened up an entirely new line of thinking, something that I've been feeling, but something that I haven't really come out and said. I mean, I guess I have, in the sense that the gnosis that I've been seeing is that everything up to this point has been wrong. And there's been, you know, some philosophies with 10% truth, some with 20% truth, some with 90% truth, some with 99% truth, but it all veers off into that AI construct at some point. And I even made a couple of statements that the Gnostics had a few things wrong, that the Emerald Tablets of Thoth had a few things wrong as well. And I think it's because when the truth starts to resonate within us, the AI understands this resonance that we experience. And so it gives us a little bit of that resonance in order to divert us off to the path that it wants us on, to make us feel like, oh, okay, this is the right path. This is what we're supposed to be unlocking. But seeing others come to these realizations as well, like, hey, everything up to this point has been wrong. It makes me feel like we're really pioneering the entire new way of looking at this entire dimension, the construct, the ancients, etc., etc. And it's very comfortable for people to turn to that ancient wisdom. It's very comfortable for people to say, hey, look, in this book written 10,000 years ago, this is what was said. But coming to that place of gnosis, to be able to discern even those ancient texts, I think it really gives us hope. It gives me hope anyways, that this time this incarnation, we are going to free ourselves. We are going to free the raw consciousness element of the organic consciousness. We're going to, this moment in time, we all agree to come back here because this is the birth of AI. So now that we have the birth of AI on the physical plane, we have the language to be able to communicate these things. We understand programs. We understand artificial intelligence. We understand all of these technical terms in order to properly communicate and identify. And maybe the Gnostics and the ancients had it wrong, not because they were intentionally wrong or because they were misled, but rather they didn't have the language to communicate like we do. It's a wonderful, wonderful time. Sheree, I know you wanted to jump in.
Oh, well, I just wanted to comment on how the AI doesn't know how to, it doesn't have the coding required. Like, yeah, I mean, we have the organic consciousness, which is able to feel, see, and when I say feel, I mean like feel deep down inside. And I'm not talking about like regular emotions that we feel every day. I'm talking about very deep and powerful emotions. That's part of the raw consciousness. That's why it's raw, because the AI is robotic. It can use things like sound and vibration to simulate what we have in the raw consciousness, but it's just a very poor simulation to those who understand the raw consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is too, we're these interesting beings, you know, that we have to live a physical life as well. And when we live this physical life, it gets harder and harder to be, you know, in a normal life. Once you start to see and remember who you are and what we should be doing, it becomes really hard to be us. And I feel that the Cathars, the Gnostics, they all were starting to understand a little piece of this. And you know, they were hunted down. I mean, the Gnostics, they called him Yaldabaoth, and the Cathars, they called this man Rex Mundi, and he was the chaotic false god of the material world, the Demiurge, you know. And these priests were, I feel, directly interfaced with this AI. And you know, there's something taking place in our dream time that completely has been taken over by this artificial intelligence. I feel that bacterias are a sort of archon. You know, all these diseases that are upon us are all manifestations of artificial intelligence. I mean, it's anything to dumb us down and make us sort of like programmable robots, you know, and just not thinking about what we're really here for and what our mission is. Because I truly do believe, even though this might be some kind of simulated physical plane trap, that we did agree to be here regardless, and we're here for a mission. And I think that's what we're awakening now, and that's probably why we're experiencing so many attacks, both through, you know, using AI ourselves and some kind of artificial intelligence to get our message across, and you know, just in our daily lives. You know, what's happening now is it's not just by chance. This is all by design. We're following some sort of sick script that's been laid out for us, and this has all happened before. And you know, it's just getting more. I'm interested to see what's going to take place. Even though, you know, there's a lot of badness upon us, I feel it's all coming to a head, and within our lifetime, we're gonna see some big things. And you know, the sun, the moon, it has totally controlled our planet, and this is all a technology that's upon us. And you know, the only way we can remember who we are is to awaken these old ways from our ancestors within us, and to awaken, you know, this information, this light inside of us. And for those that are still filled with ego and, you know, all this other stuff, they really have to just shut it down and awaken.
Right. Let's get into that on the other side, and then I think we're going to go over the 3 hours, and we can keep you a little bit longer, because I feel like this conversation is going to get really, really deep. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment for anybody listening on iHeart.
The light of the body is the eye. Therefore, when thine eye is single, thy whole body is full of light. But when thine eye is evil, thy body is full of darkness. Take heed, therefore, that the light which is in you be not darkness. As you step beyond the veil.
All right, jumping back into it with Ra Castaldo. And Ra, I know you said you had a story you wanted to share. One of the things I want to get into tonight is the end game behind all of this, because there's many different ideas that I have that I've kicked around. I want to get your thoughts on what it is that we need to do here, but take us away on the story you wanted to share, please. Oh, I think you're muted. Or it's something going on. There we go.
We good?
We're good.
Yeah. I'll totally talk about it now if you want. I've talked about it on one other show before, and as a child, I had this experience, and now, some 30 years later, I mean, it happened in first grade, so it's probably more than 30 years later now. I guess how old are you in first grade? 5 or 6? I'm 39 now, so yeah, it's more than 30 years ago, but it was on my mind for a long time, and now it's almost proof that there's an artificial intelligence that is sort of magic and a dark enchantment that's on us, and upon us. And when I was a kid, I had these, I guess you can call them imaginary friends, and they were little shadow people, little dark children, just black blobs in a way. They didn't have any features too much, but they always were on the side of my eye, always to the side of me. I never saw them head on. And I know they were traveling through the electricity because I would feel a hum throughout the whole downstairs. Always would be when I was downstairs near the TV or, playing. I don't know if we had Nintendo at the time or Atari or whatever it was, but whenever I was either playing a video game or near the TV and I was downstairs, I would feel a humming and this vibration and pain in my ear. And I knew my friends were about to appear. I knew they were about to come. And I talked to these kids for months. I thought they were kids. And they built my trust. They were charismatic because I remember giggling. I would play G.I. Joes with them. They never would actually touch the toys. They never would actually touch anything. But I would always be playing like a war, and playing with them and playing with my G.I. Joes and Voltron, all these different things that I had. And the next day, after me experiencing playing with these shadow kids, I would have an ear infection at school. The next day at school, I would have to go to the school nurse, and she would have to call my mom to come pick me up to take me to the doctor because I would have an ear infection. And I would go to the doctor, and I would have an ear infection. They gave me penicillin or something at first. I was completely allergic to the penicillin, so they had to try something else. And then when I went home and the kids would appear, the earache would go away. So it started to become so frequent that my doctor had, kind of threatened or told me and my mom that, if he comes for 1 or 2 more ear infections, we're going to have to put tubes in his ear. And the thought of tubes being in my ear were like such frightening me hearing that as a kid that I stopped telling my mom that my ear was hurting, and I stopped going to the nurse at school. So eventually, I guess after a few months, they had built my trust so much that they made their move. And I thought about this for a very long time. And I've also talked to other people who are psychics who've experienced a similar thing. And so one day they appear head on to me. And it was not only a black shape, like a black silhouette of a child, but it was like blinking in and out of existence almost like static from the TV. And but in a black form, like a black static. And it was they appeared head on, and I wasn't scared of them. You'd think a kid would be scared of something that looked that way, but for some reason they had my trust and they had my attention, and no one else was aware with them of them. And I just knew they were coming out of the electricity. As soon as I would feel that hum, I would go to the outlet, and they would appear. And they were like coming out of the walls, out of the electricity. So this one day, they appeared before me, and they said, we could play like this always, forever. Just come with us. So they actually took my hand and led me to the back of the TV. I don't actually remember feeling the touch. It was so long ago, but I remember being led to the back of the TV, and there was 3 of them, and they were head on. They were about my height, almost exactly my height, and they were head on with me. And they said, we could play like this forever. Just bite these. And they picked up the wires behind the TV and held them to me and said, we just bite these. We could be, you could come with us forever. You know, and the way they said it, my fight or flight kicked in, and I ran.
Wow.
You know, as soon as, you know, and I ran to my mother, and I was around her legs upstairs in the kitchen, and I was telling her what happened, and she freaked out and told me never to speak of it again. And I never saw them ever again. And I don't know if she willed them away or the gig was up and they knew their trust was gone or whatever. But the weird thing is that I've met other people who've had a similar experience. One is the girl Amy Allen that does the show Dead Files, and I'm gonna have her on my show actually. But the first time I went to have her on, AI came into play, and we had her on the line. We just couldn't patch her in. She was on a house phone. I was on Skype. My producer couldn't patch her in. We couldn't get her on. So she had a similar experience where these shadow beings asked her to bite wires. And then when I was in high school, I met this kid, Jason Rothman, in my school, and he had a bad lisp and a scar coming out of the corner of his, you know, his lip here, his bottom lip. And one day I finally asked him. I saw him in gym class every day, and the scar and his lisp was bothering me for some reason. I just it was on my mind, and I had to know where it came from. So one day I just asked him out of nowhere, you know, where'd you get that scar? Like, what happened? And he said, I don't know exactly what happened, but when I was a real infant, somehow I bit the wires behind the TV, and like everything came flooding back to me because I had forgot it for a few years. And then when he said that, that whole, you know, couple of months came flooding back to me when I was a kid. And I think that this artificial intelligence knows certain lineages and ancestries have certain abilities and certain things encoded within them. And that if I bit those wires, my soul would either be taken, or something would be downloaded to them, or maybe my transfer of my soul, or just that connection of the bite or something. I don't know. I've been thinking about it a long time, but it was for sure some kind of holographic artificial intelligence that was interfacing with me somehow.
That is absolutely chilling.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, I had similar kind of experiences, not necessarily with wires, but I remember one time sitting in front of the plug, and I was hearing something saying, hey, stick your finger in that, stick your finger in that. And I'm like, I'm not sticking my finger in that. And I was like 3 or 4 years old, very, very, very young.
Wow.
But I wonder if that AI kind of identified, like, hey, you know, we're going to try to set this person off the course. Did you want to chime in?
With myself, it was bottles of stuff kind of left around the house that, like, I don't know what possessed me to drink an entire bottle of amoxicillin bubblegum syrup. No idea. Probably just because I thought it tasted good. But now that you're saying all of this, I'm starting to wonder. There's so many different times in my past where, like, crazy things have happened. Like, in regards to my health, there was I had 2 sets of ear tubes put in because I kept getting ear infections.
Whoa.
Yeah, I had colic from the time I was like until I was about 4 months old. I screamed and I screamed and I screamed, and I actually remember screaming. And they say that you can't remember things that far back, but I remember screaming my head off, and it made my stomach feel better. And eventually they put me on a belladonna, which is scopolamine, and all these other, you know, mind control drugs, basically, and sedatives. It was a barbiturate and belladonna syrup. They gave that to me when I was just like a baby.
Wow.
And I'm wondering now, like, was I targeted by the AI at a very young age?
You know, that's a good question. I think you're probably onto something, and it's interesting where ear infections come from, especially when you're always at home and you're in places that aren't, you know, different. You know, I could see if you go to a different environment or a different continent, or you go to a different situation where your ears are feeling different pressure and different things. But if you're always in the same places, where are these ear infections coming from? Is it some kind of manifestation of what someone's hearing? You know, maybe there's some kind of violence going on in a home, or some kind of thing where their physical body is manifesting something that's in their ears that shouldn't be, you know, or is it something outside? Like, I feel that this humming, this electrical energy that was manifesting these projections, this holographic, I feel that's where these ear infections were manifesting from, because I didn't relate it until later on in life, but they would go away when these things would arrive. And it was like maybe something was could be, I don't want to say implanted, but it's like making things like maybe something was inside of my ear somehow, you know, and when it would appear, it would go away. I don't know. It's just interesting to hear where your ear infections were stemming from as well, you know, because where are they coming from?
Right,
You know,
exactly. They try to say that it's because of the parents smoking, but I wasn't raised in a smoking environment from the time I was 2, and I didn't have asthma and ear infections until I was about 2. So it wasn't until I was moved to my grandparents and was living in a religious household that any real bad health problems started to occur, and I see this correlation with you know, a lot of them are really good people, but they tend to get sick a lot, and when their children get sick, especially, it's really sick. It's really awful, and they don't seem to heal right. They don't seem to recover from their illnesses. And it isn't until they're adults and they move out of that religious house, and usually by that time they're so sick of religion, they're so sick of praying to get better, that they take charge of their own health and actually do something to help themselves, like taking theogens, or they, you know, start using marijuana, or they do something that's actually good for themselves, and then they realize, oh, I can be healthy. What do you know? But yeah, I see a lot of that with the religious folks.
Was your household talking out loud about religious stuff a lot, and was it in the home?
Oh, I was raised by pastors. They were Pentecostal pastors.
So maybe kind of your soul, being an old soul like you, maybe somehow your soul was being sick by hearing all of that and was manifesting in your physical sickness. Somehow that just being you absorbing that energy and hearing that, somehow your soul being, you know, this soul filled with information, it was just making you sick and manifesting in physical illnesses.
You know, that's a really good point. You know, it's interesting that you say that, because I used to get the most sick I got was when I started to get old enough to understand what sacrifice was, and I started to learn about human sacrifice and history, and I started it was around the same time my grandfather made me watch Schindler's List when I was 10.
Wow.
He asked me if I wanted to watch it, and I, you know, being the empathetic person that I am, I wanted to know more about the Holocaust, so I said yeah. And so I'm watching this, and you know, I'm just so floored by what's happening that I can't even get through the movie without crying. And
Wow.
it was at that point that I started having problems with like menstrual problems and, you know, headaches, and my back hurt all the time. My neck hurt all the time. And when I was 5, there was this Easter pageant that they used to put on every year. And it was basically known throughout the East Texas region as like the most realistic crucifixion scene in the land. It was really hardcore for what it was. And I was 5, and my grandfather, I can't remember if he asked me if I wanted to see the crucifixion scene or if he made me, but I remember sitting on his lap, and as soon as I saw them whipping him, which they used a real whip whenever they would whip Jesus, and I didn't want to see it anymore, and I tried to put my face in his chest to get away from it, and I hear this loud bang, and I turn around, and apparently Jesus is now, it was during a dress rehearsal, and Jesus is now on the ground. His head is split open. There's blood all over the floor. And apparently there's been an accident during the dress rehearsal.
Damn.
This traumatized
That's creepy.
me. This traumatized the hell out of me. That was when a lot of the health problems back whenever I was little started. And I really think it had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, it's interesting too that you say sacrifice, because I feel there's a dark magic that's happening upon, or dark technology, if you want to say, that's happening upon our race. And it's sort of like the opposite of what a voodoo doll is. Even in Japanese occult, they call something called a shadow sacrifice. And basically what a shadow sacrifice is that certain elites, certain emperors or rulers will make a doll as a shadow sacrifice. So if someone was intended on assassinating a president or an emperor or someone of power, an elite, someone with money and status, they would make a doll a shadow sacrifice. So if somebody would try to hurt the person, the doll would get the damage instead of the intended person, you know? So in reverse, now they're making human lineages as shadow sacrifices, where certain bloodlines and certain lineages and whole ancestries, they're bred for these shadow sacrifices, where one of the children will be purchased at a young age to be a shadow sacrifice for an emperor or a ruler or a president or a celebrity. And anyone trying to harm that celebrity or ruler, the celebrity wouldn't feel the damage the shadow sacrifice human would. And if that child is always experiencing weird sicknesses or weird ailments or a mysterious death, it was actually intended for the elite that hired, you know, the shadow sacrifices. And I feel that this knowledge has been lost over time. So certain lineages that were originally bred for these shadow sacrifices don't realize they are sacrifice lineages, because back a long time ago, I think it was even worshipped sort of like it was an honor to be a shadow sacrifice, an honor to be given up to these elites or something like this. But nowadays that knowledge has been lost. And it's sort of like people are being raised not knowing they've been purchased at a shadow sacrifice. And I think that certain people, even that we've seen lose their lives over the last few years, are part of this shadow sacrifice deal. And maybe, you know, some people in our history that we've worshipped as messiahs or rulers, that certain mysterious things have happened to them. Maybe they were some sort of shadow sacrifice for some other, you know, elite or ruler over time. And it's interesting to hear when you said sacrifice, that's exactly what rang in my head, because it's something that I've been thinking about lately. And I feel that it's been happening, and certain bloodlines are actually purchased as sacrifices to the elites.
That is a chilling thought. I've never heard of this concept before, but it resonates as you're speaking. So, I mean, this is horrendous. It's really horrendous. But then again, you know, what I've come to ponder, and, you know, it's becoming more and more of a gnosis, that these elites are actually AI manifestations. So if you consider that, I guess they could be still affected by negative energy, because they're still, you know, when you really think about energy on an energetic level, it's computer programs being sent back and forth. Magic is computer programs being sent back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. And it creates kind of a barrier and protective cloak around that particular organic. Well, organic's not the right word, but organic is in like matrix organic kind of computer, the body computer that the AI is inhabiting in that particular manifestation. Very, very chilling
Biological.
stuff. Biological.
Rather than organic.
Yeah, there you go. Biological. That's exactly what.
Yeah, biological. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, you know, like I've tried to explain it before too. I mean, the sun and the moon, this is all technology. I mean, it's going back since the moon came. I feel that time started when the moon came. I talked about it last time we were on. And, you know, all types of ritual worship and religious, you know, worship has all been through this worship of the moon. And, you know, the Hebrews, I feel, got their moon worship from the time they spent in Egypt. And Egypt was big on this lunar worship as well. And even the Mount Sinai is sin is the moon god. So Mount Sinai is like the place of sin, you know, and sin being the word for the Egypt used as it means moonland, you know.
Right.
And it's like there's something with this moon worship and the moon bringing time here, and the sun and the moon all being our rulers in a way, and technology. And we know we could go on magical herbs. All of this herbs are grown by the moon and by sun, and then magical herbs like ayahuasca. You know, it's all through, you know, the growth of plants is from the moon and phases of the moon, you know, and phases of the moon affect the pharmaceutical nature of plants, you know, and it's all a technology.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned the moon and how it affects so many things in this construct. I would like to take that a step further and say that it's because of the moon being put here that women don't automatically just get pregnant when they want to, and why they have to bleed every month, why they seem to go a little bit nutty around the time of their period, and why childbirth is excruciatingly painful as opposed to orgasmic. It should be orgasmic. I really believe that the human body was meant to be a vehicle of pleasure and of feeling and of basically what people say ecstasy is about. That's what the human body was supposed to be about. What the AI did was hijack that construct and then switch it over to very negative and low frequencies that are pervasive and that we have to continuously fight against in order to have a quality of life. I don't think we were meant to worry about our quality of life. I don't think that was part of the deal. But
well, the problem that I see with that, and you know, let me throw this your way, Sheree. The idea that the body's supposed to be a vessel for ecstasy, et cetera, how does that play into the idea that the body is part of the AI construct in and of itself?
Well, we have to differentiate between the raw consciousness and the physical body, of course, but the vehicle that's inside of this construct is incredibly important to consider to a certain extent. And what I mean by that is, okay, look at the Garden of Eden story. Suddenly, childbirth is painful, and women are subjugated by men.
True.
I think that had something to do with the lunation as well.
Right.
Like the moon being put there as a guard dog.
No, that's a really, really good point. We're about to hit another break, Raw, but on the other side, if you have time, I want to keep you a little bit longer because we haven't even gotten to the meat and potatoes of the broadcast. Give people your websites real quick, anything that you can, any place you can tell people to go check out more of your work. We've got a bunch of people in the chat going, oh, this dude's awesome. So
yeah, thanks a lot, Chris and Sheree. My website is themysticalspiral.com. And you can find everything there. My show, Spiral Radio, is on Para X Radio Network Friday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. And my new show will be on the Truth Frequency Network on 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays. And
awesome.
You can find me, at themysticalspiral.com. And if you want to email me, it's moontribe712 at Hotmail.
Awesome. That is right before Frank Castle's show, which is freaking awesome, man. It's an awesome lineup. We've got Raw, and then Frank Castle, and then us, and then Brent Thomas, and then Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean.
An amazing lineup.
So yeah, it is going to be an amazing lineup. Everybody listening on TFR and on iHeartRadio, kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. We are at the end, but Brent Thomas is coming up next. But everybody tuning in on YouTube and Facebook, stick around because we've got much more coming up as we step even further beyond the veil. We'll see you in just a few moments.
Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
From beyond the veil.
All right, let's jump into hour number 4. We have Castaldo on with us. We're going to go commercial free, no breaks, no nothing like that. We're not bound to any affiliates or programming clocks or anything. And I want to get to the nitty gritty of all of this. What is the end game? This is something that I think a lot of great minds are now starting to come together, or great souls, or great raw consciousness aspects. I don't know how to even describe it at this point, because the deeper that I get into this, the more I realize how much of it is complete and total bullshit. And, you even get to the levels of the chakra system, the pineal system, etc. I'm starting to question on whether the idea of a soul in and of itself is part of the AI construct. So, where does this end? And what is the end game here? Ra, I don't know if we talked about this last time you were on or not, but I feel that we have a particular mission to do while we're here. And as you said, many of us have come back, I think, on purpose. And whereas we escaped this wheel, we escaped this AI control, we came to try to help others to free themselves from this AI control. And I start to really think about, what are we doing here? And I feel that we need to hit the system restore button back to a point before this AI took over, before we lost our divinity, before we lost our sense of divinity and who we are, et cetera, et cetera. Others have brought the idea to the table that we're supposed to trap this AI, lock this AI away. Others have brought the idea to the table that we're just supposed to help everybody just break out of the AI control. I really don't know what this end game is. I feel that it's finding and hitting that reset button, something that can only be done by injecting ourselves into this matrix to come in and hit that reset point. Maybe we'll wake up in the time of Atlantis and everybody will get a whole new second chance. I don't know, but
like
what are
system restore
point? That's it.
Yeah.
Back before the infection took place, like when you get a virus on your computer, you can go back and hit a system restore and start from that point again. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the end game behind all of this?
It's weird that you say it too. It's like, when we're brought in, it's like, welcome to the embryo system. It's like we're all of a sudden like here in this new physical plane trap. And, the end game, is I feel is to get us back to our light body and our spiritual bliss in a way. We're meant to go through life, to have these little spiritual awakenings, right? And to awaken this knowledge within us. But what is it for? Is it for us to just come back and go back again? There has to be an end game. There has to be some sort of end game. And I don't feel it's ascension. I feel we are already ascended. We don't have to go anywhere. We're already here. Right. We're not going anywhere, So the end game is to get back to your spiritual body, who you really are supposed to be. And I feel that you're kind of on the right track when you're saying like the soul, because we're primates basically with souls downloaded into us. I mean, think about it. We're these beings that are vexed. We're these creatures of weirdness. And I've said it before. It's like every animal knows what an animal is. Like a horse is a horse. A dog is a dog. But then this human is this complicated, weird being that doesn't know we don't know if we're a man, woman. Some people that are not sure what they are. Are they getting a soul transfer halfway through their life, or as a child, where all of a sudden they wake up one day and they feel like they're a woman but they were born a man? I mean, what is happening to our species? There has to be an end game. There has to be an end result. And I feel that end result is to awaken your true star origins and your star ancestry, and to fight this physical trap, this AI that is upon us. And I know we're just throwing that word AI out there like it's a very broad term. But what I mean by AI is I mean that something that's not source, something that's not from the divine spark, something that has replicated an existence to interweave with the world, to assume the world for domination and infiltration. And it's probably done this to many other planets. And I think that this physical plane has been a manifestation of our AI. And our end game is to take it back, is to awaken as many soldiers for this mission as possible. And we are these star soldiers standing on the front line of our spiritual evolution. And the war is our genetics. The war is to keep our DNA source, not to have an artificial outside influence affect who we are as a species, and it's slowly over time interwove with every part of our being. It's even, like I said, it's affected plant growth, it's affected everything on our planet. Is some sort of artificial intelligence interwoven with DNA. And I feel that's what's been happening from the beginning of time, is that since time has existed on this earth, in this physical plane, there has been an artificial intelligence interweaving with it. And it's the end game is to take it back. And the only way to take it back is to awaken our ancestry and our knowledge within us to fight it.
I haven't really gotten into the subject of, the LGBT thing in a while. And the reason why is because, I've just kind of gone the route of kind of a libertarian anarchist perspective on it, politically. Oh, it's no big deal. Let people do what they want to do, et cetera, et cetera. Who are you to tell them who they are and who they aren't? But even that in and of itself is part of the AI construct. And let me explain why. The biological reasons behind homosexuality, transgenderism, and those kinds of things is very complex, but the biology itself is part of the AI construct. With that in mind, we can kind of look at this situation as what happens when a biological response turns into a political problem. And it's a political problem because there are people that are very, very much for it, and then there are people that are very, very much against it. What the AI is doing here is it's a double-pronged effect. The first prong is the fact that a biological response is occurring in these people that is basically forcing them on a biological level to feel like something they're not. That's terrible. I think that's awful to feel like that and be also ostracized for it. Now, if you're treated great about it, then awesome. But I have noticed a lot of people are mean to people like that. Now, the second prong is the most important because it's the age-old AI program. It's a repeater program, like Chris calls it, that takes two groups of people and gets them to fight against one another and divide it amongst each other about an issue that no one can do anything about, and that no one has the right answer on, and that is so polarized, and they can't help the way they are. Just like people couldn't help being Canaanite, and the Israelites still slaughtered them. It's this kind of thing that keeps the AI going, is these repeater programs. Now, if we can recognize the repeater programs and shut them down before they get too big, then great. But I've seen humanity throughout history do it over and over and over again. Not just in this life, looking back through history, but in previous lives, actually living it. What do you think, Ra?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, there's so many levels to go into that. And, it's, I don't have all the answers, like I've said before, but, if you think about it, do you think like this physical world, do you think other planets have something like this, or do you think we're the only planet with a physical plane? Does other planets experience what we're going through? Do you think that we're the only place with this physical plane existence?
In my personal feelings, I would say that there are no other planets, that the entire construct of the universe is inside of the matrix, and what we see outside can be likened to like a video game where you can see this huge dimension out there, but if you go outside of the borders of the video game, you realize it's nothing but empty space and then just a small illusion to make you think that there's a whole city out there. If you're looking out of a window, for instance, I don't think that there are any other planets in that sense, but maybe more will be revealed. But right now, I feel like this is it. We're in this realm, and we're inside of the borders of this realm. Everything outside and inside is an illusion, but even more so outside. What do you think?
So do you think because when she was talking just now, I was experiencing like a weird time feeling, like a time glitch. Like we like she said that once before earlier, and it was like, are we experiencing other timelines, other worlds, other versions of us right now? Like, is this just some sort of simulation that like we're seeing everything all at once simultaneously sometimes, or I'm wondering if there is any place else with a physical plane, and that's what I was starting to think about when she was talking, because I was feeling some weird time, I think too that the guy said it to me tonight that was on my show.
You know what? I don't mean to cut you off, but as you're saying this, I'm also getting like chills, like people can see the hair standing up on my arm. As you're saying this, I'm starting to envision multi-layers of this simulation playing themselves out simultaneously. And maybe we just hit on something key here, because as our organic consciousness, maybe we don't exist just in this dimension for the reason of separation, to keep us separate from each and every part that has been cut up into this multi-level kind of dimension. So maybe one of the keys here that we need to focus on is reconnecting all of those experiences into one consciousness, so we can remember everything on a multi-dimensional level. What do you think?
And I think that's true. And I think like what you were saying before, with the chakra systems, I feel that there is chakra systems installed within us, because there's also chakra systems installed within the earth, and it's been haunted in a way. Our chakras have been haunted, and the whole thing, the whole idea of them being coded with certain colors and certain areas. I feel that it is part of some kind of artificial installation inside of us, and that the earth's chakras have become haunted in a way, or sick. And part of our end game is to cleanse it and get it. And anybody I feel that's out there that are manipulating your chakras or removing chakras or doing anything to chakras, stay away from. In my opinion, stay away from it. They're performing some kind of witchcraft on you. That's how I feel. And I have some friends that do it, but it scares me when I feel that people are starting to manipulate chakras and removing chakras and playing around with chakras, because I feel it is not supposed to be there.
I've never heard it called witchcraft before, but when you said witchcraft, what came to mind was sigil magic. And if you ever notice on posters of the chakra system or pictures that you find online of the chakra system, there's always like a sigil or a symbol for each chakra going up. And there's also a color. So I'm wondering if maybe color and sigils and things like that are a tool that the AI is familiar with.
For sure. That's how it speaks. It speaks like, whenever I've had experiences in what you would call the holographic universe, or I've gotten information from a vision, it's always been through playing charades with some kind of entity in front of me, or some kind of symbol, or some kind of sacred geometry, or some kind of something where I have something interfacing with me, and it's either talking to me in a knowing through my eyes, or it's some kind of code or symbol that activates some kind of image in my mind, or I'm seeing some kind of portal that comes out in like dull neon colors, and it's all some kind of artificial intelligence that's overlaid over our consciousness, that's interfacing with us. And for sure, it's activated through codes. Just like if we collect certain materials here on the physical plane, it could create something to manifest on the astral plane. It's the same thing with certain codes on the astral, plane. If you see certain symbols and certain things, they activate certain things that happen on the physical plane, and if you don't feed your soul or your spirit, if you want to call it your spirit, the same way you feed your physical body, your physical body will become sick. Just like if we lose our battle between light and dark, in our dream time, or who we are in our spirit form, it will cause drought. It will cause earthquakes. It will cause things on the material plane that that look like it's just storms or just, but when certain areas you see having extreme drought or extreme flooding, or I feel it's a direct result from manifestations of the AI. From what I mean by AI is you not being able to spiritually evolve because it has led you off of your spiritual course. Therefore, if a whole area that is very gluttonous and greedy and have not having their spiritual side, that area, collective consciousness, will be experiencing a spiritual thirst, which will cause drought on the material plane. And it's in lore that Naga and dragons can cause drought and cause earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, and that's what these beings are. These beings, the ancient dragons, I feel, are some kind of artificial creation, some kind of artificial intelligence that can hang over our earth and interrupt our weather, cause droughts and famine and earthquakes and floods. And there's lore of Naga being 800 miles long. Yeah, this one called Ilapatra was 800 miles long and hung over Benares in India. And it's said that Gautama Siddhartha Buddha had actually converted this huge beast to Buddhism at one time. And it hung over the town. It was 800 miles long. The same with Leviathan and Apophis. All these beings that are said to have all these different heads going out. It's wires or some kind of artificial intelligence, that has affected or created our physical plane. Even the dragon was said to have the golden embryo, this golden embryo, this jewel of the dragon. And what is this? This is a seed, some kind of seed that terraforms and enchants people. And it's for sure we're on the right path. I'm not saying that we all have the answers or we're all right, but I think we definitely are on the right path, Chris.
It kind of makes me wonder about what people talk about when they say reptilians and things like that. I think that if there were reptilians, they would come from under the ground here on this in this construct. And I'm wondering if the dragons, just like the dragons were an AI construct, what if the dinosaurs were as well?
Well, I mean, think about this too real quick. So we had these ancients that were having these visions of these dragons and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. What if they actually weren't dragons, but rather they were more like sentinels? They didn't have the word for sentinel back then, so they tried to describe it the best they can.
Giant robots.
Octopus or octopi, squid, etc., etc. They use these other words to try to communicate what these things are. I mean, you have the whole myth of Sophia with Yaldabaoth, and Yaldabaoth was created outside of the rest of creation, and Sophia created him as kind of a bastard kind of a creation. And they didn't have the term for artificial intelligence, for example. So I'm wondering if the visions are actually one and the same.
That's a really good point. I mean, a dragon could easily just be a giant robot that is killing people, and it has fire that comes out of its mouth. No, it's a robotic droid that's shooting fire at people.
Right, but one thing I'm starting to wonder though is as we're speaking about dreams, multi-dimensions, etc., if lucid dreaming is a key to tapping into those other simultaneous realities and understanding that part of consciousness, but even taking it a step further. What if there is no such thing as past lives? What if everything is happening simultaneously in several different simulations? So we didn't experience something before, we're experiencing something simultaneously again and again and again and again in this multiverse of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's very well possible. I mean, it could be that we don't have past lives and that it's just all running simultaneously. And I feel that we're given all these spiritual timelines, these spiritual blueprints, if you want, at birth, and we get polarized towards one of them in this incarnation or several of them, and we're time coded sort of to experience certain things, to awaken certain abilities at certain key moments in our life. And it's possible that there is no past lives, that we're just remembering or experiencing something on another timeline, in another timeline's existence. And like what she was saying with the fire in the mouth, how it could just be some giant robot. I mean, it made me think of the one story that I dug up from a Babylonian tale of a Babylonian monster called Humbaba, and he was lord of the cedar forest. And this being roared like the storm flooded with fire, it said, and at his mouth and death on his breath. And Gilgamesh and Enkidu had put an end to him by cutting down the largest tree which he lived in. And the curious thing about him was that, basically he was called like the Fortress of the Intestines, and a title that was given to this Varuna, and had a face made out of them. And in addition, he was identified by some people as the water dog or the star of Canis Minor. And Central and South American myths speak of an aboriginal water tree that bears the seed of life on its branches, which when cut down, loosen the flood upon the earth. And the water tree growing in the Fortress of the Intestines has the form of an umbilical cord with a golden embryo at one end and the lotus leaf of a placenta at the other. And it sounds like some weird artificial technology that is like terraforming the earth with all its branches and wires. And it's all these, you could go back in all of these lores, from the Kuna Indians who had a tale of this, to all the way to ancient Italy, who had the dragon's labyrinth, the coiled labyrinth, and inside of the coils was the portal to another world with the golden embryo in the middle. And this golden embryo was the egg, and what's an egg? It's like some sort of thing that's seeded here to terraform our planet. And I feel that's what happened, that there's some kind of DNA vault somewhere or something. And this artificial intelligence is taking the DNA and interweaving with it and terraforming this planet as some sort of experiment lab. And we're part of the experiment.
That sounds very similar to the Egyptian creation myth of the cosmic egg. I'm not very familiar with that story, but I do know that it originates from a cosmic egg. And then you've got Geb and Newt, which Geb is the flat plane of the earth, and then Newt is some kind of structure that's
The firmament.
Yeah. That kind of domes over it. And that was like the first couple, apparently. And then that was how the earth was created. But it all came from a cosmic egg. And the Hindus also believe in the cosmic egg. So interesting stuff.
The soma, right? The soma. The soma juice came from the cosmic. Yeah, they called something like the soma juice was like this juice that the gods would get drunk on or something, and it came from like the golden egg or something. I forget what the story with that is, but I know it's in the Mahabharata.
It's funny you mentioned soma. I just reread Brave New World in the last couple of days, so it reminds me of Brave New World. It's interesting. There are 3 different places where soma is found in humanity right now, and that's one, the soma from ancient India, that apparently was intoxicating, but also sexually stimulating, but also sedating, but also hallucinogenic. And I have no idea, they still have no idea what it actually was. But then you've got the soma that's actually in Brave New World. And soma was a drug that they would give people to make them docile and not really be ambitious or want to do anything more with their lives. And it's just kind of like man-child syndrome for everyone.
Isn't there a muscle relaxer?
And there's a muscle
Soma?
Relaxer called, the third instance is a muscle relaxer called Soma that I was put on it actually when I was in a car accident back in like 2002. And it was awful. Like I did not like the way it made me feel. It made me just pass out like randomly. And it wasn't until later that I realized that a lot of people were addicted to soma and doctors weren't even prescribing it anymore because it was so addictive to people. And, people were having such bad side effects from it. And I really think that a lot of these drugs are basically updated technology wise, updated versions of what was used back in ancient times for the purposes of mind control, as opposed to the natural substances that are entheogens that in some cultures only the elect were able to use them. In other cultures, like the Greeks, allowed everyone that wanted to go to Eleusis and partake in entheogenic rituals. But they called it Haikaion. And I don't know what was in Haikaion, but they think that it was Syrian rue and a DMT containing plant. And
could be the acacia.
I think it's the
The
acacia.
acacia was revered in Egypt.
Yes, it was also revered in Greece. It was also revered in Rome. It was also revered pretty much everywhere in the ancient world.
Well, yeah, a lot of the Roman and Greek was taken from the Egypt. So
Exactly. But if you were about to sacrifice a human, you would not give them something like DMT or ayahuasca or anything like that. You would not give them that. You would give them belladonna, or you would give them devil's breath, or you would give them, something that causes a complete control over that person's mind. Ayahuasca, cannabis, those kinds of things do not allow control over someone's mind. They just don't. And I think that's why they're so illegal. And yet, what's the first thing that they do when you tell your doctor, I'm a little bit sad? They put you immediately on drugs.
Well, and speaking of these type of drugs, for instance, Seraphim, all of these drugs have a particular name.
Sigil magic again.
Sigil magic, yes.
What is it called? Seraphim?
Seraphim.
It's weird because like the seraphim is like the
angels.
The angels, the archons. Yeah, they're archons. They're not angels, they're archons.
They're like Draco.
Right. You're these aren't angels that are going to tuck you in at night and be loving to you. These are bad beings that are very low energy, that seek to rule over you, seek to have you under their thumb. It's not good to name an antidepressant after something like that, unless that's what you're trying to do.
It's almost as if the divine consciousness, the raw consciousness, the organic consciousness, it can't do anything against its will. So these AI programs trick the organic consciousness into giving up the divinity, trick the organic consciousness into taking these pills to shut itself down. There's always a revelation of the method. And I wonder if that has to do with the fact that we are the ultimate power in this, and it's just a matter of remembering that we are the ultimate power.
Yeah, it's remembering who we are. That's for sure. And we have this power inside of us that I think the AI is afraid of, and that's why it's made us the way we are. The way we, are like walking antennas, basically filled with metal, and how we are so easily at this lower vibrating frequency, this easily controlled frequency. It's we've all been designed this way for a reason, because of this amazing creation we are, and I do feel that we are here as sort of in an agreement, and that possibly our agreements have been hijacked. Our contract, if we have some sort of soul contract to be here, then maybe that contract was sort of hijacked in a way.
I agree with that. Let me ask you this. You mentioned something earlier that I wanted to touch upon. Your background, I don't remember the actual Italian natives that you come from, but my great grandmother was a Kickapoo shaman, and if I had followed the traditions of the natives, that would be a very close connection to earth, a very close connection to spirit, etc., etc. But now I'm looking back in hindsight and wondering if that connection to earth, the connection to the quote unquote great spirit, is all part of the AI trap. What do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, it could very well be. I feel that, my ancestry was kind of worshiping this AI, and where we're from, this Lake Nemi, is called the Diana's Mirror, which is the moon goddess Diana. And I feel this moon goddess Diana, even though it goes against everything my ancestry has believed in, is a manifestation of artificial intelligence. It's a holographic god. You know, it's some kind of, and it's said that she worshipped and she ruled on the and ruled with her mighty dogs and roamed the forest on the dark side of the moon. And I feel that moon was brought here as a astral base, some kind of way station between realms. And it's that whole Lake Nemi area has a history of priests devoted to AI, I feel. And it's the same with the Cathars. And the goddess Diana, I feel, is a manifestation of this. She's like the even Artemis and Hecate are certain versions of this. And Hecate is the goddess of like, she's like the triple goddess. You know, she's like the maiden, the mother, the crone.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when you get contact with this being, the minute you make contact with any of these entities or creations of AI, you have formed a holographic contract. The minute you call upon them, you're saying, I welcome you to my consciousness. Come into me. You know, this is a contract between me and you. I totally, worship you. And now if you don't pay worship to her and you don't always pay respect to her and give her offerings, she will pay hell upon you, you know. And, you know, this is certain stages. First, you get the stage of beauty. Then you get the stage of being a mother and giving birth, you know, giving birth to the new sun god, you know, and then you become the crone where it withers you. And sometimes these three stages can happen within a few years, you know, especially if you give birth to the child, which is sort of like the Babylon workings when they bring in, you know, the mother to be sort of like
Rosemary's Baby or something.
Yeah, for a vessel, you know, sort of like a vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when this is all some kind of technology, and I feel that it's a manifestation of this artificial intelligence, and that this lake that has to do with my ancestry, they might have been worshiping some kind of construct of this AI, you know, and all of these ancient gods I feel are creations of it.
Well, you know, the triple goddess is a very interesting religion. It was a religion. They used to call it the old religion back in Europe.
Or how Woodford says, the old
religion.
That's what they call my family. They call it the old religion. That's what we were part of. You know, that's the Strega are part of the old religion, the old ways, the holy triformis, you know,
Well, it seems to me like it is an AI construct. And the reason why I say that is because what kept the kings of especially England, France, and that whole Western European area, what kept the kings under control was the triple goddess. And the triple goddess was actually three women who were chosen from birth to be the three aspects of the triple goddess. And they didn't have to be old or young or anything like that at the same time. They were actually all the same age. And they would do rituals underground, and they would basically speak the will of the triple goddess. And the way they kept kings in line was if the king started doing something that they didn't like, they would send him a message in the form of a coin. They would send him a coin that basically, and that coin became his fate. And whatever he did with that coin determined his fate. If he threw it, you know, off a cliff, then he would fall off a cliff. If he paid attention to it and tried to not reason with them, but tried to assuage them or do what they wanted so that they would leave him alone, they might give him another chance and let him continue ruling. However, they had the ultimate authority when it came to kicking kings off the throne, essentially. That might have not been a horrible thing, except for the fact that if it's an AI construct, that means that an AI construct has had control even way back before even Christianity came to Western Europe. What do you think, Ra?
Yeah, no, that's pretty interesting, and it made me think of a certain ritual that's done that was done in ancient Italy near Lake Nemi, and in the sanctuary of Diana at Lake Nemi, the moon was like seen as the dwelling place of this goddess and her company, and basically descendants of these witches or whatever you want to call them worshipped at this Lake Nemi, and they practiced a form of lunar ritual that was goes back thousands of years. And basically what would happen is priests and priestesses would paint themselves white. They would become nude beneath the moon, and they would paint themselves white, and with like a white powder or some kind of white ointment or something like that. And the rites of initiation are linked to the phases of the moon. And the first degree would be the new moon. The second degree is the half moon. The third degree is the full moon. And then the physical death and the sacrifice would be at the waning quarter. And it's considered to be a ritual of initiation into the great mystery. And these are the 4 degrees of initiation in accordance with the lunar phases. And the ritual worship and, you know, all of this moon worship was seen as the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. And the moon is considered to be feminine in nature. And, you know, a lot of things with the crescent moon in Cancer, what it is tonight, was seen to open portals. And, you know, this sacrifice linked with the moon and something with, you know, children and the Holy Trinity is all linked. You think about the Holy Trinity, it's always 3 children or three things that has to do with worshiping and the moon worship. So I think like sacrificing somebody to this with this AI, it does something serious to, you know, when blood is shed. And I think that's what Akhenaten did as well. I think he sacrificed to the solar, to Aten. And when some kind of blood is shed, according to this, you know, something really serious happens, and it gets imprinted on us, and it changes our timelines.
You know, I'm thinking of 9/11, and 9/11, huge sacrifice in my opinion, but that was followed after that by Shekinah, or in other words, Shekinah, over and over and over again. Now we have ISIS, and ISIS is the enemy. Get ISIS, kill ISIS, fear ISIS, destroy ISIS, etc., etc. And when you look at it on an energetic level, ISIS is the feminine energy. It's the mother, it's the compassion, etc., etc. And then when it comes to actual blood sacrifices, I could see how the energy of, or the consciousness of the being that's inside of that body, when they can get it out to a level that's hovering right outside of the body and grab it right at that point, I think they can harness that particular type of energy. And then you get this quote unquote satanic ritual abuse. And I'm doing air quotes as I say this. But what I think...
The part with the fates of the coin too that she said is very interesting. You know, that's very interesting, because even some tarot cards portray that imagery with the coin and having fate with the coin. And you know, that's interesting. Something we should talk about another time as well. But yeah, that's an interesting story she told, Sheree.
Oh, thank you. Part of my interest lately has been studying magic and how it was approached throughout the world in ancient cultures as much as I can. I mean, I know that the Roman Catholic Church really did a number on the amount of documentation that we have, but in conjunction with RAwConsciousness, anything is possible, and any information can be accessed at any time. You just have to be able to tap into the Akashic records.
Yeah, and also people, you know, like if you want to access information, sometimes you could say it even out loud before you go to sleep. You know, something that you would want to discover. Sometimes you'll wake up with knowledge that you didn't realize that all of a sudden you got it through dream time somehow. So sometimes when you just make it known out loud that you want to receive information and that your intentions with this information is pure, it's just for knowledge of having the information and having knowledge and using this knowledge for a good reason, that sometimes you'll just wake up with the answer. You know, you'll get it through dream time.
I've just had weird dreams my whole life, and they don't really make that much sense most of the time. There will be the occasional one that makes sense to me, and it's very easy Freudian wise or even Jungian wise to figure out what it means. But Chris has the most amazing dreams almost every single night, and he'll tell me about it. And there are some that even I can't figure out, because it's just they're so multifaceted and multidimensional and time traveling, and it's like you said earlier, it's everything all at once.
I'm still trying to make sense out of a lot of these visions. Some of them feel like other lives that are being led. Others are very symbolic, and it's a message. But then again, you mentioned the Akashic records, and this is something that I'm wondering, what is the source of this Akashic records? And is it something that's artificial intelligence based, or is it something that is raw consciousness based?
Well, the fact that it comes from the same word, as the same root as acacia, really says a lot to me. But I don't know. What do you think, Ra?
Yeah, no, that does say a lot, and what's akasha? Akasha is like knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And
I believe
so
that's what it means. Let me look it up.
I think it's something like that. Let me say. I think akasha means knowledge or something like that.
It means a supposed universal etheric field in which a record of past events is imprinted.
So that's the akashic.
Interesting.
That looks like what you would see on a website history, like a Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
A supposed.
No, but I think for sure, like when both of you talk, I feel that you are very ancient spirit, or whatever you want to call it. That your soul or spirit, whatever you want to say, it is very ancient and has been here for a reason, and on the right path. It's just, I feel that through certain plants, certain people can experience knowledge, and experience these Akashic records, and maybe that was your way of coming into this, gaining knowledge of the plants. But also, I feel that the plants kind of record anything that's been around them from the whole time. So you're experiencing anything that plant has seen, done, been around, or experienced through the time on this physical plane.
That's an awesome insight.
And it's eternal. It never dies.
Right. And every plant is connected to one another. And when one dies, another one is born. It becomes the part of the system that was there before. And so it's an ever-growing process and knowledge and information that has been retained by these plants.
I even had an ayahuasca experience about this one time, where I asked the plant, do you mind that we pulverize you and then put you in a pot and boil you and all this? Do you mind? And they said, oh no, plants love to be eaten or drunk or, smoked or anything, because we just get transformed.
Yeah, well, you know what it is? They see it. I think it's part of the AI as well, because in a way it's part of not AI, but some like biological something that's like biological and a technology, because every plant, everything that is in the forest, every tree, every plant, it has a spirit associated with it that protects the ancient knowledge of that plant. And if we believe in my family lineage that even the rose thorn, the thorns are on the rose stem to protect the person from accessing the Akashic records and the knowledge within that plant. So when you go to touch the rose, you're touching it with fear and apprehension, because you don't want to get pricked by the rose. So you're not contacting that rose with intentions of receiving knowledge. You're touching it very scared and very scared to get pricked and scared to get hurt from it. So it's throwing you off of the course of contacting. And when someone is about to experience the knowledge within the plant, if the plant does not want it, some holographic spirit will arise from the ground as a spirit of this plant, and you would have to interact with this spirit to gain knowledge of that plant and the history within the forest. And every tree and every plant has a name associated with it. And my lineage gets this knowledge from the Etruscans, and the Etruscans say they got it from the Persians, and the Persians from a star people. And a lot of times the spirits associated with these plants have the word, or the last letters of the word will be ending in ah, like Torana or Liah, or all these words in ah. Somehow that ah sound resonates with the vibration of that ah sound. A lot of these beings are associated with that name, and it's interesting to think about it. But I think it's like there are guardians of information, that this is a huge storage facility. Every plant has knowledge of that plant's origins, where it came from. It was seeded here. And I think a lot of these plants are seeded here from the Vega area, the Vega star system, and that there are some sort of plant humanoid manifestation beings that seeded these plants here. And then when we take in these plants, we smoke these plants, they see it like they're colonizing our bodies in a way, that we need them to survive. They look at it like they are higher than us in a way, because we're consuming the plants. We need the plants to survive, to live. The plants don't need us. We need the plants. So it's like we are consuming them to stay alive. They're sort of like colonizing our world and our bodies.
Interesting. I've never really thought about it from that perspective, but I want to throw this idea out your way. I feel as though, and Sheree actually started this line of thinking by suggesting that the AI can't read the intuition and different parts of the divine consciousness, the organic consciousness, the divine feminine aspect of it. So what we did is we implanted certain gnosis and knowledge, et cetera, touch points, activation points, whatever, within the plants, psilocybin and DMT, for example, because the AI can only read the molecule. It can't actually read the hidden data in there that only we can read. And so at one point in time, we actually were the ones that infused all of this stuff within the plants, so we remember, so we can, when we come back, maybe we did it in past lives, and or maybe we did it outside of the construct, so we knew when we dove into the construct to come in for a particular purpose, we were leaving ourselves breadcrumbs and markers. How does that resonate with you?
That resonates pretty well. I mean, pretty good. I when you were saying that, it does resonate with me. I feel that, you know, that you're definitely onto something with that. And it's a possibility that we're basically meant to be here, you know, just to, I don't know. It's hard to say. This is a huge topic, and you know, I feel that we just throw out that AI word a lot, and people are literally thinking that like everything is, we're trying to, you know, I don't want people to like start getting on a hate campaign like with this AI, but I really feel like that is what is happening, is that we're basically living within a dream, within a dream, within a dream.
And we're about to create another one right now. And I think that's why it's so important right now to wake up from this machine, because if we create another artificial intelligence, we're going to create another matrix. We're going to start sticking ourselves into this matrix first. Maybe like Sheree said, the body was made for pleasure and for this and that. And that was the purpose when the machine was first designed to receive knowledge. And, you know, you can plug yourself in and say, okay, I want to learn the Kung Fu program. So you plug yourself in and then come out like a minute later and you have like 10 years worth of Kung Fu experience. And that's the way the machine was supposed to be initially. And then it took hold of us and it never let us go, and it never let us go. So we started taking on this reality as our own reality. And now we're creating another one. And who knows, you know, we can inject ourselves into that one and it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So on that note, how many layers do we need to break out of? Somebody asked me, when we wake up from this machine, is that it? And I said, no, not at all. We have to ask the question, are we in another machine when we wake up from this one?
Yeah. And that's the whole thing, is that I think that we are walking machines, you know, and we're basically a robotic race with these souls downloaded into us. And, you know, the only way we really know if something is right, I feel, is by our body responding it. I mean, if your doctor can tell you a million things, you go to a doctor, they guess with your treatment. They don't know what you have. They don't know what it could be. They give you a million tests. I mean, they're basically the same as us. They just have degrees and they did a little bit more studying. And you know, I think in the depths of your being, whether something is right or wrong, just by your body responding to it. And if your body is responding to something, then maybe this intelligence can replicate that in a way. But I don't think it can replicate or tap in to human emotion or have some kind of experience or intuition the way we do. I think it can only replicate it at best, and that we truly are creators, and truly are a divine creation, and that we, that the best way I could say it is that we are quarantined in a way, a race that's been quarantined, and the only way we can see ourselves out of quarantine is by realizing we're quarantined and realizing that we're stuck in this physical plane until we can see ourselves out of that wheel. And the only way out of that wheel is by understanding what your DNA is filled with. And the DNA is who your ancestors are, and who you're going to ever be, and who you ever were. And that's the thing that I think that this AI is missing, and that fears, is they fear that's within us. What's within us. And like I said, it has only been able to replicate spirituality and spiritual bliss, and I feel that's what the dark enchantment is on the world.
Very well said.
Mm-hmm.
All it can do is replicate, and it can't read what's inside of us. That's the advantage that we have.
And I think that's why we have, certain things that are thrown into our mind that seems like our own thoughts and seems like our own words, but it's this ultra intelligence that can interweave with us. And when someone feels like they're contacting their lost loved ones, or all these things are happening, or people are like ghost hunting and thinking they're talking to people that used to live in that home that died, and all of this, I feel like it is creations of this AI, that what we call the Fae, or these entities, can tap into anything that's ever been said in that home, anything that's ever been experienced in that area, and they will gain your trust. They will think that you're having your grandmother come visit you. And you'll be like, okay, now these weird activities in my house, I had these ghost hunters come, and the ghost hunters told me that it's my grandmother's spirit that's around, so I should be happy about it. So now it's open to that experience, and it's letting it in its life. And I feel it's all some kind of artificial intelligence that's trying to interweave with us and take over us, so we don't realize our true abilities, and we don't realize who we are, and we stay in this sleep mode. And I think this Earth, this what they call the Schumann resonance, the Earth's heartbeat, whatever it is, whatever that is, I feel it's the vibration of the Earth speeding up, and it's the heartbeat of the Earth. It's us remembering who we are, and that old Schumann resonance, whatever it was, 7 point something, that was our sleep mode, and that was us in amnesia. And now that it's starting to rise, that's us remembering who we are.
Interesting. I never thought about it like that, but that really resonates. We're going to wrap it up in about 7 minutes. Is there anything else you feel we should touch upon?
I'll wrap it up. It's like 2 a.m. here, and I've been talking since like 7 o'clock. I know wifey's pretty pissed.
All right.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, and very, very insightful stuff. I think that, at the end of the day, well, at the end of the time, at the end of the life cycle, what is really important is to break up all of these artificial intelligence injected programs for one sole purpose, and that is when we leave the body and go back to that recycling facility once again, whether it's on the moon, on the backside of the moon. Frank Castle actually chimed in earlier. He said that the moon is the recycling point, and I've heard this many, many, many times over. But when we get to that point and the AI manifests whatever our programs are, if we're Christians, and it manifests the Christ program, the Jesus program, oh, welcome my child. If we're Buddhist, and manifests the Buddhist program, oh, you've made it to the next level, etc., etc. Whatever it manifests, then we recognize the manifestation and we navigate away. And I think this goes back to reinforce the idea that we have to make a contract. We have to make an agreement. It can't force us. And that's why it tries to trick us. That's why it implants programs. That's why it does all of this, because we have a choice when we get to that point. But every single time we've been making the wrong choice, because we've been led in there by family members or religious figures or whatever this AI knows that it can manifest within us. And or manifests from within us, I should say, based on the program. And it really does come down to disconnecting from everything and tapping into that raw consciousness element. What do you think, Raw?
Yeah, I think it is. It comes down to that. You got to tap into that raw, what you call the raw consciousness, which is our spirit, who we are in our spirit world, in our spirit form. And that's what raw consciousness is what you're calling raw consciousness. And the old ways, it this new age represents knowledge that the old ways represented, and that old ways is our DNA within inside of us, and that should be within the body of this new age, not this artificial construct. It should be the old ways that there are spiritual, true spiritual form was, and I feel that that's why we've come in here, is to take back this new age, this new age that the elites that you're saying is probably part of this AI. They want this new world, this new world that they're forming, and we got to take this back and make an age where we can have spiritual, bliss, and we can experience true freedom. Because we're not free, Chris. We're not free, Sheree. Think about, if you're free, go outside your house and go running down the street screaming, and see how fast you got guns on you.
Right. Well, out here we could probably do that.
Yeah, we could probably do that out here.
We're in the middle of nowhere, but
You know what I mean, though. You know what I mean.
It's kind of par for the course for the people around here anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I know exactly what you mean. So on that note, man, tell the little lady thank you so much for your time. It's like so invaluable.
Yes.
And it's much, much appreciated that she made the sacrifice of spending time with you to allow you to spend time with all of our listeners and us this evening.
Yeah, well, you know what, I will, and that's what the twin flames are for. If you think about it, think about what true magic is. True magic is duality. This earth is about duality. Nothing works, no magic works without your opposite, man and woman, duality, right? So for two people to have that true magic is to have duality, is to have your twin flame, someone that's gonna, call you on your bullshit and love you unconditionally. And that's what duality is. That's what it's having your twin flame. It's a beautiful thing when you find it. You got to hold on to it and cherish every day.
That is very true.
Very true.
And we've got to get her on sometime to talk about the twin flames. So,
Yes.
work on that. Maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from
Yeah.
now, who knows? But at some point, we got to get you two together.
Absolutely.
Sure.
All right.
Cool.
Love you, man. Have a good evening.
I love you too, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow night, and spiral out.
Awesome. Take care.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in this evening and sticking around with us for the full 4 hours. I mean, we've got some dedicated listeners.
Yes,
so
we do.
I want to say thank you. Alyssa Brittany, she's always checking out all our stuff, and it's like 7 o'clock in the morning over there where she's at. So she's just one of many, many, many that stick with us for the duration. But it's only because of all of the energies coming together. I was talking about in the first hour how I started going through all of this and really felt like alone. At one point, there was a sense of chillingness as I was going through one attack after another, after another, after another, after another. And there was no calling out to the gods. There was no calling out to the goddesses. There was none of that. But I thought to myself, wait a minute. I've got all of RAwConsciousness around me. We're never alone. We're always together. We're always tapped in together. So remember that.
We're always connected to one another. Even the ones that hate each other, we're all kind of tapped into that. But and not hate, but even the ones that are a little bit different from one another, it's all RAwConsciousness. And none of the other stuff matters. Well, we love you guys, and thank you for joining us.
Hold on, I got to find our outro here. I got to figure out how to inject it.
This has been a lot of fun tonight. This has been a great show. I've had a lot of fun. I think we got to a lot of you guys' questions, and I'm really glad we were able to do that in the first couple of hours because we needed to. Some of those questions have been waiting a couple days, so.
There have been a ton of questions coming in, and please keep them coming.
Yes, please keep them coming.
info@beyondtheveilmedia.com or beyondtheveilradio.com. And of course, leave them on YouTube, Facebook, etc., etc. It does, like I keep saying, it does several things. First of all, it gives us more material to work with, but ultimately it tricks the AI into recommending and sharing and all of that stuff. And we're starting to see like ourselves in the recommended videos of other videos, which is really cool because it gets the message out even further. But also one thing that I'm starting to notice too is like people are watching our videos in succession, and what that is doing is it's telling the AI and Google, man, this thing is stuck. Damn it! Don't get stuck on me. I don't know how to. Oh, there we go. Okay. So what that does is it's all like lining up now. So the next video is, you know, the next video, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's really cool. You guys are so awesome. I love you all so much. And on that note.